How do I? There we go. Hello. All right. Sorry. Trying a different room, trying to get the internet to work a little better in here because you have 16 devices on the internet doesn't help. All right. So welcome. We're going to try this a little different than what we normally do. Normally we just do our Q&A, talk about recent events, things like that. We're going to do some tune reviewing. Now, just to be super clear, despite the last one, this is not to bash anyone. I made sure that nobody sent me, who did the tune file. I didn't care. That's not the point of this. The point of this is to go through, look at tunes, look at logs, look at the tables, and just kind of get like an idea of, is this right? Is this wrong? Everything that we're talking about is going to be my opinion. So you don't have to agree with it. That's okay. And if there's something that I say that you feel is incorrect, please feel free to speak up, say something. If you want to hop in here and come on the screen, I'll add you in. We're not trying to spread anything that's not true. We want to make sure that we stick to the facts, right? I'm going to give everybody a minute or two to kind of get in, and then we'll go from there. We got quite a bit of files come in. I kind of tried to go through them and pick the best 5 that would show different concerns, different issues, different things that I can easily show you in a log, and you would be able to basically be able to decipher and see for yourself. You would obviously need your own layout and setup like that. You'll see mine. I will have it on the website at some point. I'm working on that. That way you'll be able to just use a similar layout to what I have, because the way I set my layout is just so I can easily find issues quickly. Because when you're remote tuning, you want to make sure that you stay efficient with it. So when we're doing multiple cars, I need to be able to see a problem pretty quickly. So you'll see that on here. How you get the beans above the frank? Oh, that's an old time secret. All right, so that's pretty much what this is going to be. And depending on how this goes, we'll decide if maybe we do one of these every other Wednesday, and then the opposite Wednesdays just do the updates and things like that, or we just keep it every other Wednesday like we're doing. It just depends on what you guys see and what you guys want. Looks like most of the people are in here. Let me go ahead and turn the AC down because it's cold as shit in here. Don't be looking at my nipples. All right. Let's do this. So the way we're going to set this up, let me add this to the stage. So we're going to have the layout set up over here. And then I'm going to start with basically like introducing what the car is, what the file was, the whole deal. I'll explain. But if you're on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, make sure to come over to JWT Podcast on YouTube. That's the only place that we'll do the Q&A. That's the only place that I'm looking at the comments as you see them right here on the screen. That's really the best way for me to just keep everything in one. And if you're here, make sure to like, share, subscribe, help us build the community, because the more people we help, the better everybody kind of wins, And I wish we could pull trans files from the T87 because boy, oh boy, it's the transmission tunes that are destroying the world. Yeah, but that's kind of part of this, right? Is trying to make it to where people can see, hey, there is an issue, and get it corrected before it takes the transmission out. Or if you destroy your transmission, make sure to hit up Tim King or Circle D and send your transmissions in, and they'll get you taken care of. See, we have a Corvette and a Camaro for your Corvette and your Camaro in the Dominican Republic. Yes, we know you do, but they're still slower. Until you're faster, And if you are, we'll just go again. You want to see me do it again? I'm just messing around, guys. All right, so let's get into the first one. All right, so I've organized these into folders. So first one is going to be a 2016 Camaro SS. So we'll go ahead and pull up the tune file. And then the best way to do it, like typically when I get a tune file from somebody, the first thing I'll do is I'll find a matching stock OS, which is this. And that way I can see all the changes, and then I just set everything back to stock and then start tuning from there. If you are tuning, that's the best way to do it. You want to make sure that you're not, you don't want to correct somebody else's stuff because you never know what might be changed in the background or might be changed that will put you in a bind. So let's go through it. So I tried to make this as like properly set up as possible. The amount of time I spent on this is pretty insane, even to myself. All right, where are we at? Hold on 1 minute. There we go. Okay. So as it was told to me, again, we don't know who the tuner is, nor do we give a shit. Basically, these are our mods. We have a 225 cam. None of this, is super important, except that if you know the 225 cam, that is a VVT cam. So that's going to be important. And then circle converter, flex fuel, the works. All right. So basically a heads cam deal. So these are the concerns basically that I had found, and I'll just walk you through quickly what I found and how, I believe it should be done. First thing first, when you do a camshaft in a motor, it alters the virtual volumetric efficiency of the engine, right? So basically where you would have had X amount of fuel, I'll just pull it up actually to show you. Try not to get too technical. I don't want to sound stupid to everybody. All right, so basically you got a decent bit of fueling down here. This is where your peak torque is, where you're really kind of making the meat of your power. And then as you get in the higher RPM, you start losing a little bit of efficiency. So when you put a camshaft in a car, basically you lose efficiency in this area here, right? So you would need to reduce the fuel there. And then you'll actually increase the efficiency in this area, which is higher, pressure ratio, higher RPM. So you would want to increase the fuel here. So basically you're shifting this map over and then you're reducing a little in the bottom. All that to say that leaving it stock, because if you guys don't remember, if it's green, that means it's been altered. Leaving it stock on a car that has a 225 cam is not acceptable. This will have drivability concerns. This one had significantly more concerns. So this wasn't the worst part, but that's something that you want to look for. This needs to be altered. If you have a camshaft, your VE is different. It needs to be changed. I'm not going to get into what the shape needs to be because, I don't want to say anything that's speculative, I guess. I want to try to stick to the facts. The other thing that we noticed is the torque model is completely stock as well. If you change the cam, you make less torque down low, more torque up top. But there's also something else that a lot of people don't put in, they don't realize, is when you put in a torque converter, because we noticed we have a 2800 stall, which was a little bigger than that, honestly, looking in the log. The problem is that converter doesn't really load the engine as much as the lower RPM stall. So where your torque model is going to be super soft in the lower areas because you're not putting as much load on the engine driving the car around. So you end up having a lot less torque than you typically should have. And you notice that the transmission starts flaring and, it's not as responsive as it was even with the stock cam. And the problem is you've got to alter this. These tables have to be altered. How you alter it is totally up to you. I don't care about that. It needs to be altered, point blank. The next issue that we see is the VVT. So when you buy this cam, the 225 cam, the variable cam needs to be phased, right? So they give you a card that comes with the camshaft and you're supposed to enter that number in. Now, this may or may not be the correct numbers, but so they put it here. Typically, you need to have it here as well. So I always, just for good measure, and if I'm wrong, please let me know, I put that into each of these tables. Something else that if you're part of our membership, if you're not part of our membership program, make sure to get there because the member videos will be coming more and more and more. But there's something in this area that you can find in our member Blackwing video that makes this cam really take the power up top. And without setting that correctly, this isn't going to function. Even if you did fill it in, it's not going to function to the peak power that this cam is actually able to produce. So that's our next concern. Let me go. So that's not the correct numbers. Okay, so here's another one. The next thing that we notice is this is a flex fuel car. If you don't know, try to fill you in. On a flex fuel vehicle, the more ethanol you have, the richer the EQ you have to command. So 14.67 for 0, 8.97 for E100, and then you blend across. Typically on a factory car, right, you're going to see, in at least in the States, you're going to see 14.1. And the reason it's 14.1 is because our fuel has 10% ethanol typically. So these cars are tuned for E10. If you get 0 ethanol fuel, it'll be 14.67. So the car will just be a little rich and the O2s will have to clean that up. I guess that's pretty much how the factory set it up. So what you'd want it to actually be, if you have the flex sensor, right, would be something along the lines of this. And boom. So as you have higher ethanol content, it will actually bring in more fueling to the base, and then everything calculates off of this. That is not what this person did. They just left it like this, which means that if this person went from pump gas to flex fuel, the car would just be extremely lean, and we would just have to hope that it corrects. I'm assuming that's why when they did the power enrichment for this 1.17 on pump gas, they did this hack on ethanol, trying to get the fueling back to about the same as it would be on here. I don't think that would suffice, but as far as I know, this customer didn't run ethanol in his car, so neither here nor there. Next issue, and we've said this before, but we'll go over it again. The minimum timing cannot be locked to 16 degrees. If for some reason, as you're driving around with that converter, right, the car is driving and it needs to pull power for a shift because you don't have the torque model correct, so the trans is super sloppy shifting, it's going to want to pull that power down to get it through. So instead of going and correcting the table, they just set it to where it couldn't reduce the power on the shifts, and it just binds the clutches together. This right here is just the quickest way to kill a transmission. And it's not really so much at wide open that it does it, because typically if you're wide open, you're making enough power, it's going to shift pretty clean. It's the driving around where it needs to have soft shifts so the car is actually drivable. And then, you know, issues like this. One other thing I noticed, which was kind of weird, is the high pressure pump data. This is what a factory is. This is what's in here. Neither of which this is not correct for this pump. This is a factory L21 pump. I'm assuming that might have accidentally got pasted as they were going through the file. But let me pull up the tune file or the log file for this one. So something kind of crazy. So imagine this car is being tuned by someone else already. Something that I noticed, and it was kind of crazy that they didn't say anything right here. So look at this right here. 43, 10, 43, 10, 50, 10. So if we zoom out, if you see the white here, obviously there's an issue with that sensor reading. Now, I don't know if he did notice that and didn't say anything to the customer. I had told him about this and told him that we would go over it on the live so he can see this. But you got to watch for things like this, because ethanol doesn't switch like that. So you've either got a sensor issue or a wiring issue or something is going wrong here. Luckily, if this is lucky, maybe. Luckily, we're going to look for power enrichment or commanded air fuel. So let me get up here. Air fuel ratio commanded. Luckily, because he messed up that other table, you'll notice that this doesn't change at all. If he had populated that table correctly, not saying that he shouldn't have, if he had populated correctly, this would be wildly swinging from, 8 to 14, 8 to 14, and the car would be going crazy. So that's definitely a major issue right there. Let me see if I can show you some of the shift issue. So you see, as we're coming through, this is our timing, right? It's commanding a shift right there, 3 to 4. So it goes to shift, and you can just see it just slides in, but it won't let it pull the timing out, right? So it limits the timing, and it just slips the transmission. So you can kind of see it in here. This right here is transmission slip. See it? So this whole time it's just sliding to go to the next gear because you're light on the throttle. This thing thinks it's only making 100 foot-pounds, which is probably making a little bit more than that, which would tighten all this up. So that's pretty much what I saw in this car. If you guys have questions on that, we're going to move on to the next car. And I appreciate everybody that did send files in. You know, I'm hoping that this is educational and it doesn't turn into a negative thing. But again, I'm going to be listening to what you say and kind of going from there and deciding how we handle this going forward. Because after the last one, even though it was a negative one towards DD, I did have 2 or 3 tuners reach out to me and ask me why I had certain tables a certain way. And I thought that was really cool because that shows that people are willing to try to be better and try to do better, which is what we try to do every day. Okay, next car. Live stream. All right. This is actually kind of cool. So this one is a car that I had previously tuned when it was bone stock. And this is going to lead to like cam surge, right? You hear me talk about how cam surge is a myth, blah, blah. I'll explain that a little further here. So I'm going to pull up the file that I had already put in the car, right? And then he had heads and cam put on the car and they had retuned it. Okay. So this is their tune versus what I had already had in the car. So cam, all that stuff. His complaints were that it surges down low and that he's got a really bad raw fuel smell out of the back of the car. So what do we know? We can go to this and do view comparison. We can see the few things they've changed. So looks like a couple things. These are the things that we're going to go over real quick. So what did we talk about on the last car? If you put a cam in it, what do you need to change, right? The volumetric efficiency. They didn't do that at all. So we'll pull that up real quick just so you can see it. When you're doing the NA stuff, you got to rescale this real quick. All right, so this looks decent. And if we pull it up in this way, it looks, you know, that's about correct. The problem is with the cam now, this whole section right here should be much lower, and this section should be much higher. But as you see, by it not being green, this wasn't touched. And I'll show you in the log how it induces the surge. So let's go back to this one. And I think I put down in the marker where it was. No, I did, but I didn't save it. All right. I think it was somewhere around 13 minutes. Okay. And the best way I can show it is going to be this. Let me rescale a little bit real quick. All right. So basically what you're looking at here, you have your 3 flows, right? Your mass air flow, which is the amount of fuel commanded from the mass air sensor. Then you have your VE airflow, which is the amount of, VE commanded from the sensor, right? And then dynamic, which is what the computer is actually using. So as you see, because it is set 99.98, they had changed that. That is primarily MAF. Now don't get confused. It's not 100% MAF, and that's what we're going to show you. But it is MAF heavy, right? So most of the time you're going to see that these 2 lines are following each other for the most part. Where that changes is we see like right around here, right? We got a transition. Wait for a transition. Hold tight. Oh, let me move this a little more. Sorry. I think that's going to be high enough. All right. So if you notice right over here, you'll see the blue starts kind of biasing. It goes to the red, and then it's back, and then it's there. Right here, this that you see, that's it going between both fuel maps. That's it going between the mass air, going between the VE, and the dynamic is just trying to bounce and pick between the 2, because any transition of the throttle, it's automatically going to look for that VE. And if your VE is incorrect, it's going to go to that fueling, go to this fueling, go to that fueling, go to this fueling. And it's going to pop back and forth. That's what people call cam surge. It's not cam surge. It's just you didn't take the time to dial this in properly. And at some points it is close, right? But look at this point here. Your mass airflow is 40. Your VE is 87, right? Because this should be lower. So now you have a trend here on decel, and the car is going to be just fat on its way down because it's not following the right signal. And look at the air fuel. We're fat on the way down. So I don't want to get too detailed, but you can see where we're having this issue. The mass air went to go up quickly, and because it was a transition, the dynamic stayed VE. So without tuning that VE properly, these are the surges you're going to get. You're never going to get that out if you don't actually, tune it properly. All right. And then the next one was basically the raw fuel smell. When you have a camshaft, you have injection timing. I'm not going to go through all this right now, but basically what I'm getting at is if you have, this car has catalytic converters on it, so there should be no fuel smell. What you can do is you can actually look, Evans Performance Academy and a bunch of these other schools have injection timing calculators, or you can look it up. Silver Surfer, if you don't follow him on YouTube, go to his YouTube. He has that as well. And you can actually adjust the injection window here. There's a lot of stuff on it. They didn't do that. And that's why this car is, has a really foul smell, and you just don't want to drive that around, right? Because then you get out somewhere smelling like a race car. You might think that's cool, but it's not. The other thing I guess I would say is, the timing. So what we had in it, was a blended timing table. Obviously, this is, what we do. The more airflow, the less timing. That's just how things are supposed to go off the grams per cylinder. So what they did was said, nah, it's just easier to make it all one number. I get that, and people will argue that that's correct. And maybe because it's just a heads cam car, it's acceptable, but not to me. If you're not going to spend time doing it right, why even do it? So basically we had it like this to where down low, it would pull some timing out. Up top, it would phase the timing in because that's how a power curve is supposed to go. They just zeroed that out and put it all in the timing table. It's all one number. In my opinion, that's not correct. That's half-ass. You guys can judge that. But that's pretty much that for that car. Again, if you guys have questions or you need me to go back, let me know. I want to get through all of them, and then we can do a Q&A at the end. So I know this is kind of long form, but, if you don't see something, you can always go back because these will stay online. Let me check, make sure we don't have any questions that are pending. I did see a donation. Thank you for that. That really helps us out. I do spend a lot of time trying to prepare for these and to try to get the information out. So this goes a long way. Okay. Let's see. Sorry. Just make sure we don't have any questions that are pertinent right now. What do you need to send the tune file over to you if I'm tuned? For this, it was just, send us a tune file and a log file of, idle, cruising, and wide open. But we don't want to know who tuned it. We don't care who tuned it. We just want to see that. And then, the mods that are done to the vehicle. And then we can go from there. If we do continue to do these, that'll be the format going forward. Thank you, Bo. Appreciate you always helping us out, man. All right, let's move to the next car. Next one. If I'm going too fast, let me know as well. This one's a doozy. So this is, okay. I want to make sure it didn't have too much information in there. All right, so what we're going to do, this is, and there's a reason that I have these here. But this is the matching stock OE file, okay, to this car. One thing I noticed was the fuel loop blend time, which I don't want to get into picky semantics, but basically this was copied out of an automatic. It's just, there's a lot of copy paste in here, but we're not going to go through that because that's subjective. My biggest concern here was to kind of walk you through what gram per cylinder is, because I know you guys hear me talk about it, but I don't get super in depth about it. And I want to make sure that we do a little bit more. And then there's another concern with this car, why they had reached out, right? And I'll go to that next. So basically, the gram per cylinder is how it basically calculates this table. So we have our spark air mass in gram per cylinder, 0.08 down at the bottom, 1.36 up at the top. The best way I can kind of say is around, 1.0 is about where the boost starts, right? And I had kind of just calculated this out right here. So basically around 100 kPa should be, which is sea level, should be about 0.8 grams. 180 kPa, which, should be 1.3, 1.4, 220, 1.6, 1.8, right? So if you're not seeing this correlate, chances are you have the injector data incorrect in the tune, which I think a lot of people don't understand, that improper injector data ruins the entire tune. Everything is calculated off of injector data, right? So the benefit of Gen 5 is that most of us don't have to change our injectors, right? But all the Gen 4 stuff, Gen 3 stuff, the injector data had to be inputted manually. And when you do that, you've got to make sure, especially if you have to scale it, which this had to be done, that you input the data correctly, because if you don't, you're going to have an improper gram per cylinder. So what that results in is you'll get things like, you'll see like they're all one number here, right? And then sometimes you'll see a car where it's like 0.6 and down is all one number. And you're like, man, why did they start way up here? Well, it's because they scale the injectors wrong and their boost is up here. This is the opposite. They actually scaled the injectors wrong, but the other way. So basically where they have it like this, these numbers are actually larger than they needed to be. So it's over hyping the gram per cylinder. The downside of that, I'll explain as well. So little history. This 427 2650 car, it was being remotely tuned. They were on the dyno, and from what I was told, the car just wasn't making the power the guy wanted. And they couldn't figure out why. They were going back and forth, and they could never figure out why the car wasn't making the power. So they were sent a log, and I'll show you that right here. This is the pull, right? So if you notice, as soon as here's our gram per cylinder right here. Okay. So we're cresting 1.0. We're not even in the boost yet. That's your first indicator that something's off. And again, this isn't the end of the world, nor is this the biggest problem with this car, but this will lead into other issues, right? Transmission shifting way too hard, braking parts, things like that. So this car comes into boost and it's going. Okay, why does this car not make the power that it was supposed to make? Right here, you see these dips? That's the O2 sensors, right? So these are our millivolts. When you see dips like that, that's a misfire. So that means that this car, when he was making a pull, had a cylinder or cylinders that were misfiring, and somehow the guy tuning this car did not catch that. And I was like, man, I wonder, what was causing the misfire, right? I mean, it wasn't, but you're about to see. Let me add it because I don't have it on here. Let's just add it in. Because they don't have it in, they don't have it pinned as EQ. I think it's this one. Let me see. Yeah, okay. So remember, this car is a 427, 2650, 15 pounds of boost, 13.3 air fuel. That could be part of it. Now, luckily, this wideband was on this side, and we're seeing this 13.8, 14. Long story short, this car probably needs a motor, or maybe they caught it just in time and he switched tuners and it was corrected. But this is just something you want to look for, right? So typically I have EQ commanded versus EQ actual, which will have like the lines will lay over the lines, and you know that you're on target with what you're looking at. If they have it in AFR, you can look at it this way. But any boosted car, LS like this, needs to be somewhere around in the 11.8. Again, whatever you want, I don't care. 11.8-ish. Let's just go with that. But you see these right here, this is a misfire. Make sure that if you see this, if your tuner doesn't catch it for some reason, hey, something's going on. Can you check for a misfire? No problem. Here you go. So biggest issues on this one were those. And then, we'll take a quick peek right here. If you notice 76, 78, 44, right? So on tip in, this number's way lower as we're coming in. So what does that end up doing? That ends up giving us lean dips on transition in, because while the VVE was done, right? Virtual volumetric efficiency, while it was populated, let's expand it for boost. It was populated like that. And if you've ever seen a VE curve, again, I'm not going to say that it needs to be perfectly smooth, because that's not how things work. The VE needs to match what the car is, but it typically, if you look at the dyno graph and you look at the torque curve, your VE will be very similar to what your torque curve looks like, right? And while you may think that your torque curve stays relatively flat, it doesn't stay that flat. So basically, this was just all made one number, right? See? That's not how you do that. Don't do that. There's several other things in that file, but honestly, it's more opinion-based than anything. But those are the things I wanted to show you, and things that we can learn off of that one. Before I go to the next one, I'll go check the comments again real quick. All right. It's not about sending your tune in with or without pride. It's just, we're trying to have people know how to look at their own stuff a little better. And this goes for my customers. If you look through this and you see things like this, don't feel shy. Ask me, because, every few months I change, how I'm doing things. And I try to do things 100% to the best of my ability, but I'm not perfect, and I do miss things. And, the more educated everybody is, the better all of us are going to turn out, because you can point it out and I can correct it. You're a tuner and you're like, hey man, I see what you did, but I want to know how to do it or why you do it that way. Call me. I don't care. I'm here to make us all win. And again, if you're on Facebook or Instagram, make sure to come over to JWT Podcast on YouTube. That's the only place we're going to do Q&A. And, like, share, subscribe, help us grow the community. See, U2, my Grand Sport with a stock LT1 engine and ECS supercharger. Car ran 10.9, and with your tune, best I got in a quarter was 10.1. Hell yeah. Thank you. And if you didn't see that video, we had a customer go 4.9, and yes, it was negative 2,000, but he also went 5.3 in positive 1,000 DA with a completely stock stock LT1. And he's been doing it for over a year. Mind blown. That's I'm really proud of that one. Do you do math only, speed density, or hybrid when you tune? What's your opinion on that? All right, let's do that. Because I see a lot of times that people will go to a tune file, and it's usually the guys that kind of like just started tuning and just started learning, because I did it too when I first started, because I was stupid too. I'm like, 300, 200, that fucking dude's lazy, right? But on the last one, did you see that it still uses the VE, right? So cold start, it uses the VE. Transitions, it uses the VE. They do work together. Now, if you set this at 4,000 and 3,000, right? Like you see most of the factory cars do, right here, 4,000, 3,900. That does prioritize VE down low and prioritizes MAF up top. But changing it to this does not make it MAF only. And something somebody sent me, I'm going to show you guys. Let me pull it up down here real quick. I don't want to. Because everybody's like, oh, well, if it was like that, then why doesn't the factory do that, right? I mean, and that's a fair thing to say. But let me show you something real quick. All right, I'm going to pull it up in a compare real quick. So this is a stock GMPP LS3, makes 525 horsepower. This is from General Motors, right? So they did this tune. 150. So the factory does it too once they put a cam or something else in it. There's reasons to do it. There's reasons to not do it. There's some cars that I'll do 4,000 and up. Some cars I'll do 3,000 and up. Sometimes I'll do 300, 400, 300. It depends on the platform, but this is something that's very misunderstood, I think. And then you also have things like this that need to be adjusted. So you have your correction factor, right? And this is how much it biases each one. There's so much more to it. But it's a good question that you had, and I wanted to make sure that I had touched on that. And I even had that file on deck just in case one of you guys asked that. Okay. Can you tell if a driver destroyed a car or if it's tune-based just on data? Typically, especially like transmission stuff, and I do a lot of tuning for a lot of the trans builders out there, is because I know kind of what to look at just over time experience. And I can usually be like, hey, something's wrong with this transmission. Maybe it's got a cut seal or something. And I can usually spot that before the customer notices it and have them go ahead and pull that unit, send it in and get it repaired. Typically, I can see these things ahead of time. Not always, but for the most part. Let me let my puppy out. She's crying. There you go. Sorry, I'm back. All right. So good question, but yes, we can normally see that. Appreciate it. Thank you for the donations. Greatly appreciated. Let's see. My tuner sent in a log to you because of this to make sure it's all good and learn. This is cool. 900 horsepower. Yeah, I got that. And a lot of the guys that did send in stuff, if I felt like it wasn't going to really help us teach anything, it didn't really make sense to put it up here, right? I kind of picked a few that would show you guys the most common things that you'll run across and that you could just spot in your own log and you can alert your tuner. And if your tuner does have trouble with it, there's people, there are tuners like me and there are others that will help. When we first started this, I've said this a million times, we didn't have anybody to reach out to. Everything was super cutthroat. It doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be cutthroat. We can work together. The guys that don't want to work together is what it is. But a lot of us do, and it's gonna work out. It's gonna help. Let's see. Horsepower Patriot. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. What are we doing? Free shirt? Wendy? Oh, she must have put something in there I didn't see. What about in a car that's running speed density? I'm thinking of running a high ram and an over the radiator intake and a velocity stack at the grill. That's fine. You would just have to really make that table a lot more meticulous. And then there's ways to go around. There's ways to, turn the MAF and fail the MAF properly, but you don't want to get rid of the MAF. The MAF has to be there because it still has your baro in it. It still has your humidity sensor in it. It still has your intake temp sensor in it. And all of those are critical. And real quick, I'll show you something that will get a lot of guys. It got me really bad a long time ago, back in the gap, and I've never forgotten it since. When you have this right here, you see this -4, it's typically -40, right? A lot of times we'll zero that out, okay? And the reason is if your coolant temp sensor gets unplugged or fails, it now follows this and adds 18 degrees of time into your tune. Don't be that guy. Don't make that mistake. That one sucks. You have a similar situation here. So intake air temp, this one isn't because it's an aftermarket tune file from GM, but their factory one for sure has this -40 column and it has timing here. Get rid of that. Save yourself the headache. Unless you're going to be in -40 weather, and then I don't know. I don't even know how to tune that. You live in hell anyways. All right. I have 2 IPSI on my ZL1 and I can feel when the port turns on. You should never feel the port come on. Period. Should not feel that. Yes, I will. I have a port one in here. It's coming. Let's go to the next one real quick. Again, if I'm going too fast or you guys need me to alter something, just let me know. This is my first time. And if you don't know, this is definitely out of my comfort zone. But, you know, I said we'd add stuff to the channel. We're going to add stuff to the channel. We're going to try to help. I just got to be super uncomfy to do it. All right, so this is the tune as it was sent. I did have to alter the names on these again because some of them had the tuner's name and I just didn't want that. So this is a stock vehicle. This is something that really, it gets me and it sucks because, you know, this guy just had a shutter in the trans, which is common on the 8-speed, and they did sort that, you know, from what I was told. But I had asked him, I said, hey, you know, does this thing get terrible fuel mileage? And he goes, oh my God, the worst. Let me show you why. So keep in mind, this is a factory vehicle, right? Nothing has changed. It's box stock. I like that term. Okay, so tune as sent. Let's pull up our compare, which was this one. Okay, so what I want to show you, when they're factory, let's go to the factory first. Boom. So when they're stock, you have your area here, right? This is like your idle area, your light throttle, you know, light throttle cruising. So right around here, you're kind of easy in the pedal. You got 30, 40, 50 degrees. This is normal because you got to remember it's not a high compression vehicle. One thing that I think a lot of people don't factor in when they do this, remember factory vehicle, is the variable cam. And the variable cam, what it does is it's going to retard, it's going to make the cylinder less efficient. It's an emissions thing. So how do they fix that? From the factory, right? That's this variable cam timing, right? So in that one little area, this right here will add to this right here. So for the sake of that, I just basically took that timing and added it, which is this right here. And that way you can see this is with it added. Okay. And now this table makes a little more sense, right? So as you're starting to cruise into it, you don't have that little hole that was right here because that hole corresponds to the virtual or the variable cam. So you see, we're about 40, 50, right? And that's what keeps that cylinder hot, keeps that cylinder clean, keeps emissions at bay, you know, keeps the cats hot, keeps everything happy. So if you go in here and you're like, man, I'm going to make this tune better, and you do some shit like this, do you think that you made that tune better? Do you think that you made that stock vehicle better in any metric? Right here, where we had all this timing for cruising, for keeping it clean, for the cam phasing. And you could say like, oh man, what if, you know, the cam wasn't phasing or they turned the cam off? It was, because it's completely stock. Here's that phase point, right? We're looking at the same table. Here's that phase point. So this cam is phasing, everything's enabled. But in this area where that truck needs that timing to kind of get it moving so it doesn't have to burn so much fuel, you take that out. I mean, you're dropping it by a significant amount. So what this does is this results in a poor running vehicle. And the trans is fixed, so the guy's happy about that. But at the same time, if you're going to tune a stock car and charge them, you know, full price for tuning, and you do this, I mean, you know, it's not very respectable. So you would think maybe he added it here, right? Maybe. No. This truck's literally like that. Something I was going to show you. So you got to think when this truck gets to go, right? Like he floors it, he punches it, he's ready to get in it. Man, at 17 degrees, maybe it's going to rip, right? Because you would think. So I asked for a log because I was curious. So this is the truck, right? So this is your throttle right here. This is your ignition timing. This is, you know, your fueling, blah, blah. As this truck starts to accelerate, it's got 6 degrees of timing in it. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if this thing just like pooted as it tried to take off and try to go down the road. Factory, this is going to be significantly higher. And let's just check it. 4,500 at 830 grams. So you would go to this 8,300 grams. We're right around here. 4,300. So we'd have 17, 18 degrees, right? And then, what? Oh, yeah. So we'd have 17, 18 degrees instead of 6. Sorry. Forgot that none of that was altered as well. So right here, you know, you hit it. This might have been like a traction control event or something. I didn't go through and actually look. Well, actually, yeah, right here. TCS requested. Yes. Okay, so that was traction control right here. And look at that. I mean, boom. And then it goes to shift. We go down about 8 degrees. Now, here's something I want you guys to understand. When I talk about this timing reduction, that it needs to pull this timing out. It's not a problem to pull timing out for a shift. You want that, right? But, and I've said this on one of my videos, it needs to be a tight V. You don't want a U. You don't want whatever this is. You want a tight V. You know what I'm saying? And that just means it pops the timing, makes the shift, pulls the timing back in. Boom. When you see it come out and hold it out and then go to the next one, right? You can look at it like this. This is the clutch going off. This is the clutch coming on, right? So the reason it's doing this is because right here, it signaled saying, I'm almost done dropping that clutch, right? I've almost released the first clutch. Is the second clutch ready to go? No, it's not. So it says, okay, get it going, get it going, get it going. This is tune related. You could fix this in the calibration. Look at this the whole time right here that this clutch is coming in. And then at this point, the clutch is like, okay, this isn't working. Boom, Hail Mary, and it adds the pressure. And that's the yellow going up. So same thing over here. If he would have calibrated this vehicle correctly, as this clutch drops off, we're getting down, we're getting down. Right here, it says, oh, this clutch is off. Oh, this clutch isn't, we're not coupled yet, right? The new clutch isn't all the way up yet. It pulls the timing out. So it needs to pull out enough timing to drop enough torque off, right? To get this clutch time to come on. Because you notice once this timing comes back in, boom, it just Hail Marys and jams the clutch back on. Some people feel like this is a, you know, and if you look at shift time, 300, 250, shift times look good. The problem is that a lot of people don't realize the shift time is this calculation here. It's not accurate. So you'll be like, oh, it's got a 250 shift time. It's still burning the shit out of this clutch. This one here is burning the piss out of this clutch. You can adjust that. If you know what you're looking for, you can say, hey, tuner, whoever, I noticed that this clutch is taking a long time to come on. Now, if you were light throttle, this could be normal. But this vehicle is, as you can tell, wide open throttle, 95% throttle this whole way through. And it's trying to make the shift, and it pulled the time down. Now, this is factory, -7. Just wanted to point that out. So where was it? Yeah. So I think this is like the factory table that was in here. So that's just what it's doing. But had you tighten this up, if you see these U's in here, this is an indication that something needs to be adjusted. Make sure that you just get with your tuner and tell them, hey, can we get this tightened up? I don't think there was much else on this one. It was just mainly that, because there wasn't a whole lot done to this truck. Again, it was a stock vehicle. They fixed the trans stuff. So I'll show you where the changes were. Let's see. Compared to stock. These were the changes to fix that. So if you know that area. Anyways, we're not going to delve into that. All right, we're going to move to the next one. I hope you guys understood that. You know, basically, don't give it less timing than it had factory unless there's a reason, like they want to go 87 octane and they have to, or something like that. And even in that case, you can set, like, so while you're tuning, you obviously want these to be the same. And then once you're done, you're like, hey, you know, this is going to be the last one. Usually you'll take this one, and you'll take this one, and you'll pull a certain amount out of this one. Like, let's just say from here down, do like a -6. And that way, maybe blend it if you want. That way, if for some reason this thing keeps knocking at this timing, and it sees the knock, and provided that your knock sensors aren't wrong, it'll transfer to this table and it'll keep itself safe. This was a done file from what I understood, and these tables were the same. That's also a bad thing to do. But that covers that one. I'll go through the questions again. Make sure if you're not on YouTube, get on YouTube. Do you still tune 24X cars? I do not. I do not remote tune Gen 3, unfortunately. I apologize. It's just too complicated to do that remote because I can't see as much stuff, and I'm a data junkie. So I want to know. I want to see. Thank you, man. If I don't look nervous, that means I'm doing good because, you know, see, I need to get my friend to send his F-body tune, wasting $600 on you know who, how to get it retuned. And okay, so just because we don't tune them doesn't mean we won't be able to look it over for you. And we could recommend you a Gen 3 tuner. I do know a bunch of people that do, so I have no problem with that. Bad gas mileage is going to be real. You have an LSA blower and you might have a heavy foot, so it's hard to say. But if you have a stock vehicle and you retuned it and you get way worse fuel mileage, like 4, 5, 6 miles a gallon worse, you did something wrong. In most cases, we gain miles to the gallon when we retune them because we can make everything a little more efficient. Wendy's coffee and a shirt. Thank you. Appreciate that, Jax. The consistency, I do appreciate it. Where's the log review of my fuel system? That's definitely not max. I am not even showing people that, damn you. By the way, the fastest M7 quarter mile C7 in the world right here. Bad dude right there, even though he doesn't listen. I'm always on the search for that tight V. See what I'm saying? If you don't see a tight V, you need to ask your tuner where the tight V's at. Appreciate the donation. What are realistic gains horsepower on something like a stock LS3 vat? Typically from stock to tuned, 30-ish. If you're on the 85, 40, 45 is what we would typically see out of it. All right, let's move to the next one. I'm going through these decently fast. All right. All right. The guy that wanted port. Here's our port. So 2016 C7Z with a 7-speed manual race car, factory matching file. All right. So what do we got? Kong porta blower, 2.3 upper, stock lower, headers, intake, port injection, full E, stock cam. So I actually really like this combo. I would do a bigger lower because you have port injection, but you know, this one has a few things that we need to figure out, right? Okay, so first off the bat, we have a stock cam, right? So should the VVE be higher, lower, or stock, right? Because it's a stock cam. I would assume it needs to be stock. I was pretty caught off guard when I noticed that it was altered. So I'm like, oh, well, maybe they're just like super picky, right? And they're like, oh, GM didn't do it right. So I was like, let me look. VVE right here. And then this is a boosted car. So let's go ahead and expand this down. And if you don't understand, we're going by pressure ratio. It's like gram per cylinder, but just more complicated. So it's kind of close to the same, but you notice we go all the way down to 2.98. All right. So we'll know off the bat that like the shape's not crazy different or crazy far off, I guess. But one thing that was weird is if I close this out and I go to my compare and I go to here, right? And remember, this has more boost in it. So we would think that if anything, we're more efficient. Correct? So copy this over just so we can kind of get a compare. And I noticed that it's way higher here and it's lower up here, right? This is the factory one. So for what reason did they pull all of the fueling out of here? So it's kind of confusing, right? This is the factory, right? And then if you go back, this goes way down. So for some reason, they pulled all this fuel out of the bottom side. Thank God this is a manual car. because this is going to cause some serious havoc on this operating system. Because remember that everything is calculated off of that airflow model versus the mass airflow model, which will now not make sense. So that's our first thing that just stuck out. It was really weird. And then we're going to get into this. Okay, this is all right. So you've got more boost on this thing. You've got port injection. You're going to want to maximize the DI, right? Because that's where you get most of your power, that instant hit, that punch that everybody loves. So when you've got something that's modified this much, you would definitely adjust the injection time. Like anything that's making a good bit more than stock, if they're not touching this table, that's pretty much a red flag on a DI car, because you really need to optimize this to get the most power out of it. Because remember that the factory did this for efficiency. But at the end of the day, if you're going to touch it, like they did this one, for the love of God, don't make it lower. Like 10, 15, they just zeroed everything out and put an 8. I don't really know why. Issue. So I'm thinking maybe they just like really fixed it up over here. So I went to check and they just like added a percentage to it right here, a little bit, 118 more PSI. Might have helped a little bit, was not enough. The big problem with this, once you do port injection and you have a stock cam, is you really struggle on the bottom side, right? Like, here's the log for it. So what you really struggle getting is your fueling right here. So I have these maths. You may not have this, but basically green is ideal pulse width and red is actual pulse width. And then the white is how much headroom I have for more injector, right? But the one thing you really need to look for is your high pressure angle right here. High pressure fuel pump angle, 130 is your max. So this is like 3,500. If they would put like a lower pulley on here, this would have hit even earlier. But you see, we're sitting at 130. But we have port injection. So if you're running this, right, if you remember in this table here, we're asking for, because they didn't have it in the log, we're asking for 3,000 PSI, 3,020. But if you look in here, we're getting 2,800. So we're not able to hit our target here. And the reason is because this pump is maxed out. It's riding the edge. This pump cannot pump anymore. So we have headroom here. We don't have pump room. So you would utilize your headroom to optimize your pump, right? If you're sitting here riding this and you have port injection, move some. If you don't know how to fix this, move some to the port. But at no point do you want to ride on this 130 window, because remember this, it said full E85. This is only E70. If they put 80, 85, 90 in this thing would just fall on its face in a heartbeat. You'd be in big trouble. This car would not be able to perform with this calibration with that. And then you saw we have delayed entry of low side fuel pressure. So right here, typically once you start getting into boost, you want that low side fuel pressure to come up quick, right? And you're in control of that in the tune. There's tables to fix that. But you need to optimize that because you brought more boost in. This needs to coincide. You notice our fuel pressure sits around 47 and then boom, it comes up here. But we're already at, 10 pounds of boost. This thing's already rolling. So you've already, this right here, you see this dip right here, you've got your lean entry. Okay. It may not be the end of the world, but these lean entries can over time cause issues. And we wonder maybe why. Why did we have a lean entry? As we learned before, here's our mass air grams. Here's our dynamic grams. Here's our VE grams. So you're transitioning in. And remember, I showed you that VE table is way lower than it would be factory. Well, so it is here too. So when they go to tip in, the blue, which is your actual, your calculation, goes over here on tip in to follow the VE. And your mass air is like, no, I'm actually flowing this. But it's like, no, we're on transient, so we're going to follow this. And you get a bad lean spike. Again, these are things that, I get it's nitpicky, but it all makes sense because all of this should make sense to you. if you're doing this, right? If you're charging somebody to do this, you should understand this. We'll move forward. So basically, my biggest takeaway from this is if your high pressure pump is just maxed out and riding that edge, you need to either A, offset the fueling to something else, B, utilize your headroom properly, or C, have somebody tune it that can figure this out. And I don't fault everybody for not knowing this, right? Like this is not, first year tuner shit. It's not, it took me a long time to learn this as well. And every day I learn more. Every 6 months, my whole tuning style is changing and adapting because this stuff is changing and adapting and things are being added. So this is my attempt to help people catch up that want to catch up, but didn't have the benefit. Like back when I was doing this, I didn't have anybody to call. So I'm your Ghostbusters. But there's other tuners too. There's lots of other tuners out there helping. Let's go back to the tune file. I think that pretty much covered it. One other thing, we've got more boost, stock cam, a lot more cylinder pressure. So we're going to go back to the timing table. And what do we have? We have, again, because we're coming in early, pretty much all one number. Typically, when you're on pump gas, okay, because remember that this pump gas is this table minus or plus this table, right? Once it goes into power enrichment. This table is 0. This table is what you're getting, right? So no matter what, unless it knocks and you go to low, make sure I'm staying, it's the same table. So they didn't adjust that. So right here, if you're on pump gas, you're coming in, boom, you're coming in hard, peak torque's right here. You've got 18 degrees of timing on pump gas. My opinion that is a lot if you don't have methanol or something else to really help with it. Chances are this car probably rides on E85 most of the time. That's why we haven't seen an issue. But this is a quick way to, if you're in a bind and somebody pulls up next to you and you're on pump gas and you peel off in it, this was avoidable. This melted plug was avoidable. The other thing is you really want to think of your grams per cylinder here, right? So if we're like, let's see where we were. We were at 1.36, 1.32. So we're right around here, right? But let's say, you catch, say it was 90 degrees outside, and then you catch like a really, really nice cold gust or one of those stupid, cold things come through. And now you pick up like 4 pounds of boost. Now you're down here. Now you're 4 more pounds of boost on the same timing. Where if they would have actually, expanded this down and did like a, I don't know, -6 and then blended up a little bit. Like you see how hard that was to do, right? So now you'd be like this, and then you get that cold air. There's a little bit of room for safety. So it's the little things that these guys could do. They just choose not to do it. Not very fair. But then they go into this. So we're about 1.36. We're adding 6 degrees on top of that. That's okay. Cars get about 22 degrees of timing. The air fuel that they're targeting, that's my next thing. And this is a personal thing. Don't have to do this. Don't have to listen. Totally up to you. I don't care. When you're running a DI only motor, you have, charge cooling. You have, basically it's supercharging the air coming in, cooling everything. The cylinder's way more efficient. The minute you add a port injector, you have gotten rid of that benefit. So when we're running these things, 0.85, 0.86 lambda, 12.5-ish, that's okay on a DI only motor. But when you go into, DI PI and you have that port on there, you have to factor in that you have killed a lot of that supercharging, a lot of that benefit you had on the DI. That's why, power for power, DI only is more responsive and tends to make more power. This car is still at 0.84, which explains why on 12, 13 pounds of boost, it was only, 22 degrees. I think you could have run more. Thank God they didn't, because it's already too lean, in my opinion. But something else that you need to watch for when you're on a stock cam, the cam is only going to flow so much, right? So the trick with stock cams is you got to be careful of your RPM, because while we were 10 degrees down, 10 pounds of boost down here, you start stacking against that cam. Now we're 14, right? But the way this car is set up, we just picked up 4 pounds of boost and our timing is the same. And if we get a cool day and this goes to 18 pounds of boost, which it will do, this car still has the same timing at the same lean air fuel because they didn't change that. If you look with power enrichment, we're at the same power enrichment in both tables at all temps. So something to think of. That's pretty much my beef with this. This could have been optimized. The VVE could have been left stock and this would have already been better. We wouldn't have had that dip. We would probably want to add, just remember, if you have a small cam or stock cam, like the BTR Stage 1, I always tell people, you make a lot of cylinder pressure, you want fuel. The whole lean is mean thing, that game's not true. We'll argue with the fucking wall if you want to. It's just my opinion. I will never be of the opinion that lean is mean. Sometimes, yes, if you're on a dyno and you lean something out a little bit, sometimes it will make more power. A lot of times that's because you're not optimizing everything. And I don't want to get too technical, but again, this is just my opinion. I tested this on CTSVs back in the day. If we would run them at, 12.2 on the dyno versus 11.8 on the dyno, the cars at 12.2 always made more power. But at the track, 11.8 always went faster. There's a reason. And there's a lot more to that, but you can watch the Rick Crawford episode for the reasoning behind that. I think that's pretty much covers that. So this is a really good setup. If this was optimized, this could be an 8-second car. I've got plenty of these setups with a 2.3, 945 or 955 lower in ZL1s and C7s that have and continue to run in the 8s. It's 100% possible. This right here is a good combination. Without heads for like 850 horsepower. With heads, I've seen up to 950. With a 2650, it makes a cooler 950. But you have to keep in mind that you're putting a lot of cylinder pressure in there. You need to mitigate that cylinder pressure. I'm not trying to teach you how to tune, just teaching you what to look at. Talk to your tuner. All right, let me make sure we don't have comments, and then we'll get on to our last one. It's went a little smoother than I thought. My tuner doesn't know about the tight V. Damn it. I'm sorry. That's bad. But, look, we'll teach him about the V. We have enough guys in here. We can all discuss and kind of, get on the same page here. Going to be the first 8-second M7. Hell yeah. You're already right there. Had you bought a fuel system, we would have been there by now. Just saying. Will you be able to explain anything about the tune I sent you last week, 2011 CTSV? Okay, just because I didn't use it here doesn't mean that if we do this again, I won't use it there. I didn't want this to be like a bashing thing. I wanted this to be an educational thing and a way to look at your log and see issues before issues become issues. We're trying to prevent losing customers. We're trying to prevent people, blowing up a motor and then blowing up another motor when they could have looked at that log and avoided it, right? And I know you shouldn't have to because you trust your tuner, but let's be real, we're all human. Looking at your log is one more set of eyes. It helps. All right. Crush it, brother. Thank you for doing this and help the community get better. Integrity matters 100%. I appreciate that. I've been searching around everywhere. All the V's are loose, like hot dog down a hallway. You're in the wrong place, bud. You're in the wrong place. Doing great, man. Showing your knowledge. Thank you very much. Again, I'm not saying I'm right. This is my opinion. And I'm open to listen to anybody else's opinions on this. Like I said, I don't know everything. I will never know everything. But I will always continue trying to know. And what I do know, I do. And what I don't know, I'll ask. Appreciate that. Thank you. The loyalty guys in here goes far, man. I really appreciate you guys following us through here. I know I'm not the most entertaining person ever. I try. Yeah, go ahead and send that chart layout. I will be working on that. If you are part of our membership, if you're not part of our membership, hook us up, bro. It's like a couple bucks. But like I said, I'll be adding videos to our membership. If you're on Instagram or Facebook, get on over to YouTube, like, share, subscribe, become a member. I will have the charts and layouts for discounts for the members. I have, you know, I'll have a member discount as well for tuning or merch or anything like that. We still have the Nice Try DD discount. If you were, you know, a victim of the DD crowd, we can get you taken care of. So holler at us. And then something I don't think I've said it on here, but if you're, you know, first responder, military, any of that, you're out here being a hero, let us know. We appreciate you. We appreciate your service, and we do have a discount for you as well. Feel free to message me before you buy or book anything, and we make sure that you get that. Are y'all still going to 2K? Yes, we are. I try. Maybe once a week thing. I'm learning a lot. I need more participation from people, and I'll do it once a week, but because the lives, they do okay, but they don't do stupendous, and our channel isn't growing fast enough, I have to debate how much time I spend, because I spend 2 or 3 days preparing for this to make sure that I have everything in line. And remember that I tune full time, so I have to budget my time. If this starts growing and you guys start sharing it, and you know we start getting more followers and it starts helping a lot more, I'll go back to once a week. But currently, I just can't afford to do that yet. I think it's too late. Sadly, that hurts. I'm sorry, but we will ride again. What about no V at all in the shifts? W the converter, put the converter locked. If you're an 8-speed, that's okay. And I'm going to say that, provided that everything else in the engine side is 100% perfect, the 8-speed can go with no V, and it will live if everything else is lined up perfectly. If all of our flows make sense and everything's happy, you can be no V. But on the 10-speed and on the 6-speed, you kind of want a V in there. A little bit tight V. We don't say that around here, but you know, he'll hit you with a lawsuit real quick. Well, a fake lawyer, but you get what I'm saying. When are you going on tour again? We're gonna post all that as we go. We'll do our East Coast, then our Central, then our West Coast, but we're not there yet. We've got a lot of other things that we've got to get done, like Texas 2K and possibly doing a C801 soon, and you know this. Nice coming down from Fargo. Laugh out loud. Would love to grab some lunch or dinner for y'all and get some of y'all's critique on my stock, but I'm in the bomb. You talking about the bomb? Are you bringing the bomb? Because if so, I want to see it. But I'm always down to grab some lunch. All right, let's go ahead and get on to our last example. We don't want to save any of that. Last example coming up. What was this one? Okay, this one was camshaft converter, pick-em-up truck with a Tim King built trans, and he's got some shifting issues. So we're going to do a lot of V-talk on this one. A lot of V-talk coming up. Get ready. Get your panties back up. Not that kind of ready. Oh, that's not it. Damn, the wrong one. Look, whoever was here for the last live, you got to give props. I am more organized than I was. I need a little credit for that one. I even messed it up. Wendy had to sit through all of this already. So like, this is the second time I'm presenting, because had I just went straight to presenting, it would have been atrocious. I missed it a lot. So, all right, so here we go. So we have the tune file here. Timestamp 1717 is the 3.4 issue. Uh-oh. I thought I did plug my laptop in power. Uh-oh. Hold tight. We almost lost battery power there. Whoa! It's back. All right. Anywho, so timestamp 1717.34 was or 1717.34. So 1717, we're going to look at our timestamp here. Right here. Boom. All right. This is what we're talking about, right? This is not the V that you take home from the bar. This is not what you take home from the bar. Now, keep in mind, if you look, it was on a different one. The shift time was like really, really fast, but it's not, obviously. And what do we have, right? And I know that you need the layout for this, but you could build this too. I built it, and I'm a retard. All right, so what do we have here? We have a 3 to 4. We have a 6-speed transmission. This is a built transmission, so this thing, the tolerance is a little different. Things do need to be adjusted a little differently. But we have the same telltale sign, right? So we have our clutch here that's going off, our clutch here that's going on. Let me see if I can alter these limits to make this a little more obvious. Give me un momento, por favor. That's about all the Spanish I know. I'm trying. All right. That looks a little easier, a little more understandable. All right, so this is your clutch coming off, right? And then this is the ECU saying, okay, well, I'm dropping that clutch. I'm almost done. Pull the power. Well, we're stuck at 13 degrees. So what does it do? This clutch is going, but it's just binding. It's binding and binding and slipping and slipping and slipping and slipping and slipping. And then it says, okay, F this, timing in, boom, send it, right? All of this is a problem. All of this needs to be adjusted. Now, what caused this problem, right? Because I'm like, this is weird. Maybe, keep in mind, this is a pretty heavy truck, right? It's got, what did we see earlier? We saw it in another file, a 3600 stall. So now you're pushing the gas, but the converter's slipping a lot, okay? That's how it's intended to do, right? To get the RPM up. The problem is, as it's slipping, you're not producing as much torque because you're kind of just coasting. You're a lot lighter in the throttle, or you get it. If you don't get it, you're probably not a tuner. We're only seeing 55 foot-pounds of torque. So is this thing going to try to shift really fast and really hard at 55 foot-pounds? No, because you're barely touching the throttle. You're barely moving. So the issue with this is typically this would be around 150 or 200 foot-pounds as you're cruising, because realistically, it's a heavy truck. You're trying to get this thing moving. If everything was calculated properly and rescaled properly, this would be a lot higher. This would be a much tighter V. Not that this is a V at all, but a much tighter V. And this thing would be not doing this. And if it didn't, there's still other things that you can adjust, because this is an aftermarket transmission. You need to look for things like this to tighten it up, to not have that, because this, while it may not kill the trans right away, wide open or anything, as you're cruising around, I guarantee you this right here is burning the shit out of those clutches, and it will just continue to burn and burn and burn and burn until you have no clutch left. And then you're like, damn, my truck isn't going to work today. That's why. All right. So that was the main thing I wanted to touch on that one. Tight V is always what you want. All right. So this one thing we noticed, this has a 225 cam. So what did we learn on the other file? This seems to be like a common thing here, which is weird because the card comes with the cam. Brian did a good job adding that. So we look in here, we have nothing, but it is a variable cam. Nothing. 2. If you remember, this was populated on another vehicle. Up here was 4. So they did do the data, but they didn't even do it correctly. The other thing is, again, if you're part of our membership program, there's a table in here that needs to be adjusted to maximize this camshaft. If you're part of our member, go to the Blackwing video. It'll all make sense. It makes a huge difference when you have a variable cam that is made to pull up top, because this wouldn't pull up top. So this right here, the truck is leaving a significant amount of power on the line, which some people are like, oh, maybe that's safe. No, it's not. It's inefficient. Inefficient is not safe. That's not how that works. Those two things don't intertwine. The other issue was, this one was crazy. So I went to the fueling, and I noticed that his O2s weren't really reading. This negative right here, factory, it has no negative, right? It's positive 1795, negative 2000. And if you hover over it, you see it says If the O2 voltage drops below this value, the O2 sensor is ready for closed loop. Set low to disable closed loop. You don't get lower than that. So it's never going to drop lower than that. These O2s are turned off. So if you notice in this log, this whole time, we have no O2s. They didn't even log them. There's no O2 activity. And apparently, I think I was told that the O2s, they were having issues with it. But in my opinion, if you're having issues with the O2s, then you should fix that before telling someone you can tune their vehicle properly, because you can't. Do the fun part. We'll go to the wide open portion, because everybody loves the wide open portion. So we have our entry here, and again, we've got a lean entry. You know, it's got a cam in it. We go to our check, and we're pretty close. So like this guy was pretty on there. It could be tightened up, but we noticed that oh no, we don't, because we don't have O2s. We noticed everything's going. You see the torque dropping. And then right here, we have 29 pounds of fuel pressure. This is something to watch for. This is really prevalent on trucks. Make sure that you have fuel in your truck when you do the pulls. But notice we don't have a tight V, right? We got a flapper. Go to our trans. We don't have enough trans data. I can't show you guys, but just assume it's this one, because it is. Pulled off, time, boom, it comes through. And then right here, it has like a little flare. You see that flare? That was this. Boom, pulling back out. That needs to be adjusted. That matters. Believe me, it matters. This one here, we're going. We commanded our shift up. Going. It goes to pull. We're dropping the clutch. We're dropping the timing. We're dropping the clutch. Loose V. Okay, it's going, but even up here with this much pressure, it isn't locking. It's like, oh shit, I'm still not grabbing. So what does it do? It notices that it even with the pressure coming up, it wasn't coupling. The timing's back in. It's not coupling. It cuts the injector down, right? So we go lean, and then it even shuts the throttle. If you're having a throttle closure on the shift, that means you're just way off the base. You're way off target. That means that right here, you would set it to where it can't go low enough. Now, arguably, this is OE. I would have probably lowered this, but again, I wouldn't fault you for not lowering it if you didn't know. This is how the OE does it. Most files are a lot lower. This one is not. I verified that. But I will show you that the person that was tuning this knew that that was a problem, because in the minimum here, they had dropped it to negative 3.5. So they tried to lessen that effect. Instead of actually fixing it, they tried to lessen the timing reduction. But then you also have long-term, which means how long has this been happening? It's been happening long enough that the -7 came from the long-term. So this has been a problem for quite a while, that the truck has learned that it needs more reduction. And then you see it goes lean right here. It has a timing dip. We have a little bit of knock coming in. So the truck's just not happy. And you notice when it comes back in, it's kind of hard to see, but basically right here, you see the RPM slip. And when it noticed that the trans was actually slipping, even though it was supposed to be engaged, it pulled the throttle down to bring the RPM back down until it coupled, and then it pulled through. So major issue here that could have been caught. I know the guy knew that there was a problem, but hence why he sent it in here. And you could, if we had more data, we could show that a lot more clear if we had trans-slip data. But these are things that you can find. You can just look at the X, and if this is way out here, it's probably not right, unless you're at light throttle. When you're wide open throttle, that's very, it should be tight. TCC, something picky, right? The torque converter clutch comes on, but it had went full lockup. By the time we got, 17 PSI, so this must have a really good converter in it. Yeah, Circle D. It's got a really good converter in it. So by 24 PSI, we have no converter slip anymore. Honestly, 17, but 24. So going in here and jamming another 50, 60, 80 on top of it, you really don't need to do. You're just putting more heat and pressure and strain on everything for no reason. That was done over here. So in these tables, they just put more and started messing with things that they really didn't need to alter, because that converter, Circle D, it was already good. We went over to long-term, reduce had been happening. Super soft shifts because of the converter, because the torque model wasn't redone. So we'll check that real quick. And so I saw the torque was changed, but when you see things like this, that's copy paste, right? Like they obviously pulled that out of something else because the OS matches. This should be right. And then, it was changed out of something else. And this isn't exact, but this is decently understandable that this means this was higher and now it's lower, and it shouldn't be lower because you should be making more power there. Hence why the trans is slipping. All right. I think that covers it. I'm pretty sure that was everything. Standard, all the timing in this table, all the way up the graph. Just not a great execution of the tune, but again, this is he said, she said. All right. I think that wraps that up. I hope that went well for you guys. I did have a few more, but I think that this kind of gave us the best start. Again, this is something I tried to prepare a couple days ahead of time for. If this does good and people appreciate it and people want to see more of it, let me know. We'll wrap this up obviously with Q&A. I always give you guys a chance to ask the questions that you want. If you want to go back over a file, let me know. I'll go back over a file. These 5 that we have. And then if this is something that you guys really want to do, right, and you want to have this more often, share the YouTube, spread this around, have more people participate and get in this. I don't mind doing it more, but we've got to grow the channel to do that. And, I'm grateful for what we have grown. I'm grateful for the community that we have done so far. Wendy worked extremely hard on the videos. I work extremely hard at trying to not look like a jackass. I don't execute it very well, but I try not to look like a complete jackass on here. And hopefully you guys are learning, and hopefully this does help somebody, and we'll go from there. So let's get into some Q&A. Again, real quick, if you're on Facebook or Instagram, move over to YouTube, JWT Podcast, like, share, subscribe, join our membership, help us help you. And let's talk about Type Vs, because I'm sure there's a lot more Type V comments. Let's see. All right. One of my buddies told me to get tuned by him, and the rest told me, we can't say his name. Yeah, we can. LS Fest West. I haven't actually appreciate the donation. I haven't done an LS Fest West, but I'm not against it. It just depends where it falls in the year, because now that we're planning on having both of our race cars going, Wendy's CTSV and my C7, and then we've got Wayne's and all these other guys that are going to be going out, hitting it hard. I think I don't know how much time we're going to have. We're going to see, because we're also building the Escalade in the next month or so. We're going to be starting to build the Escalade. We have a new motor for it. We'll be filming that. We'll film the tuning process so you guys can follow along with that. We just got a lot. I'm going to try, though. 70 watching, 19 likes. I know. Come on, guys. If y'all participate, we can do more. People wanted this. I did not want to teach any of this. I did not want to try to do this, but I'm really trying. This is me putting out the extra effort, I promise you. Because I'd rather just sit behind my computer and send out files and, have people send me cool draggies. But I think this is something that the community needed. So, so 8-speed doesn't need the V. Okay, listen. It doesn't have to have the V, but everything else has to be correct. If you're off on anything else, it will kill the transmission, but it doesn't have to have the V. So, oh, come on, man. Why are you doing that? I almost got it. Anyways, yes. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Yes, we are home in Puerto Rico. Thank God. That's why you can see I'm glowing. We've been home for a few weeks. It's fantastic. But we will be back in Texas getting ready for 2K very soon. I'm sorry. All right. We got a new member, Ted ZL1. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. It means a lot. It really does. The participation, the like, share, subscribe, sharing the page, sharing this video, to other pages, share our content will definitely keep us putting more content. Damn, the walls are blown out on my V, sad face. Seems like a lot of channels. Is that only Gen 5? No. So I log a lot of channels because I'm a data junkie, and because they're like literally on some cars I log GPS coordinates, because if it's a different country, I'll put that in there. It'll log the GPS coordinate, and I can go check the fueling in that area, because things like that matter. Altitude, fueling, humidity, the barometric pressure, everything matters when you're tuning these cars. And doing it remote, you really need to make sure that you're spot on, right? If you want to do this and you want to do this for a living, you want to charge somebody money, you want to try to be the best you can be, I'm not saying that we're the best out there, but damn it, we're going to try. I bet that all these V comments. All right. As you know, I'm thinking of putting a converter, but would it be good for rolls just being NA full bolt on, or should I wait and instead buy the all fuel system to run fuel? What's the most beneficial? You got two different benefits there. The stock cam does tend to perform better up top still, so the converter will still help you there. But fuel is always kind of like the backbone of everything. So there's not really a which is better than the other, because they both really help in their own way. You should just do both, and nitrous. I don't have any V on my 6L90. It's a straight line. My tuner told me to do it that way. Well, you're the tuner, so that's on you, bud. Just came here for the first time from your reel on Facebook. Sent my file in, so looking forward to learning some more about it. Thank you for the info. Thank you. I did get yours. It came a little late. I didn't have time to prepare for it. I might have emailed you back. I'm not sure. But again, if we do get the participation and this does do really well, then we'll do another one and maybe we'll toss it in there. But if you did send a file, regardless, you'll get an email back, just an evaluation of what we saw, what we thought, just my opinion, and, go from there. Maybe reach out to your tuner, say, hey, we saw these issues, or, hey, can we work together with this? Or we just, retune it for you. Either way. You guys hitting Florida 2K? I do plan to hit Florida 2K. Truck ran 7.7 at 8th mile at 90 like that. Can you get it to 7.5? Yes. This is sorry, but you got the loose V. Tighten that V up and it's definitely going to go faster. Horsepower, new membership. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. All right. See, we're getting some members in here. We're getting some participation. Not a tune question, but I went to your website to book consultation. It wants me to pay first, which is fine, but where do I go to pay on the site? So again, I'm working on a website thing. All of the payments go through justinwhitetune.com. That's where you'll book everything. And then we have justinwhitetune.setmore.com is where we schedule it. I like that scheduler a little better. It's just easier for me to maintain. I know it sucks having two websites, but as I've recently learned, most tuners don't schedule tuning, which is mind-blowing, because I would lose my mind trying to remember everybody and get them taken care of and get them in order. So I need the scheduler. So I'm sorry that it's two websites, but it needs to be. Either way, yes, justinwhitetune.com is where you would go to pay, and then you'll book it at justinwhitetune.setmore.com. Wendy can add that in the comments. Just trying to help. I'm sure I'll talk to you later tonight. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it, man. You definitely will. Jax, how were you not a member before, bud? You've been one of the most loyal guys here, even though you only give Wendy money. But it's appreciated, man. It means a lot. It really does. If the weather is too bad and the bomb can't go, I'll bring the stock 5.3 pickup on E and race the Escalade for $50. Don't do that to yourself. Don't do that to yourself. That Escalade has like a everything and no record right now. And it's about to get a motor in it. A motor. And I do have a new membership. Happy to be part of the squad. Thank you, man. We're happy to have you. I really enjoy doing this. If you can't tell, I have to make sure that it makes sense. I've said that from day one, that if this doesn't make sense, then, we wrap it up. But I'm going to give it my best. We've been a year in. We're a little over 3,000 subscribers. I'm not upset with that. I'm very grateful for that. We've got, quite a bit of members, and I'm really hoping that this thing grows even bigger so we can, push even harder into this and bring more info and more testing. We do have our camshaft shootout that's coming up in a few months, which is going to be pretty eye-opening. And all of that will be posted for our members as well. T County, thank you, man. Appreciate that. Welcome to the club. This is, there we go, justinwhitetune.com, then tuning, then build consult. Once you pay it, send you a link to book on the schedule. Steve, again, here's another donation. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Hopefully we get to test that thing out tonight. I have the text from you that says some people pull timing on the shift, but I don't. You're a liar. You're making that up. Stop doing that. Stop doing that. God damn you, man. What AR do you recommend on 78 millimeter Turbo 5.3? Where'd we go? Damn it. Who's somebody deleting comments? There it is. What AR do you recommend 78 Turbo 5.3? Honestly, that's more of a like Robert Young at Zona at Force Performance question. If you were here for Wendy's car, you'd realize that I picked the wrong AR for her turbos, and Robert had to fix that for us. And now the car goes whoosh, way better. So yeah. Clarissa has a V3 that got gapped by the Escalade. I'm gonna say that. I know you need a rematch, but like, don't say I didn't pull off on you, because it happened. Florida 2K is October 1 through 4. Rocky Mountain Race Week is October 4 through 8. We're gonna be tired. Shit. Yeah, if you're not going to Rocky Mountain Race Week, Wendy is going. That is going to be our first drag and drive we've ever done. I am more nervous than I was for this tonight, but it's going to be awesome. Going to do the trailer, the whole deal. It's going to be sick. Subscribe. Looking forward to learning more. I'm looking for how to diag false knock. That flat won't go away. Just if you guys didn't know, if you are part of our silver or gold membership, you can message me tuning questions. Our gold membership is, if you are tuning and you are part of our gold membership and you're like, hey man, I'm having this issue, which I had recently. A customer from Australia sent me a tune file and a log. He was part of our gold membership. He was been chasing an issue for a few weeks. I went in there, fixed it, sent it back, problem gone. That's a hell of a bargain, because most tuners would never do that. I'm doing that because I want people to have somewhere to reach out. So if you are part of our silver or gold, message me privately and I can walk you through on how to figure that stuff out. But I can't, I've got to get something out of it, because outside of that, I've got family and tuning that I've got to keep doing so I can pay for this house. I appreciate the honesty and not knowing everything. Appreciate that. Look, I'm never going to claim I know everything. I definitely don't. Anybody that tells me that they know everything, I just stopped the conversation there, because we have nothing else to discuss. I'll always keep trying to learn. I'll always try to keep doing better. It's just how I was built. All right. Full tuning, my otherwise stock 80,000 mile 2020 1500 Denali 6.2 10-speed truck yield benefits. Actually, yes, because the stock 10-speed calibration on the trucks for some reason is really kind of janky. Converter strategy definitely needs a little work, and the engine has quite a bit left in it. You do have to get the computer unlocked on the 2020, so that kind of sucks, and the credits are a little pricey, but it's definitely an overall gain, because the throttle is also really, really laggy. What street tires do you recommend for a ZL1 running 325 30 19? Honestly, I've had really good luck with the ET Street SS. I know a lot of people don't say that the ET Street R is better, but the ET Street SS, having the grooves in it, I think help on more like a dirty road or dirty pavement where you need dissipation. I've gone faster on those than anything, so that's just my opinion. Aaron, don't get blocked. Don't do it. I like you. Don't get blocked. Hey now, don't put me on blast like that. Let me throw a Pro Charger on my V first. You already got a blower on it. I'm putting a blower on the Escalade. Now you in real trouble, fam. Anyone had problems with Circle D converter on 10-speed pulsing, trying to lock up on wide open throttle? Heads cam, 6-gen, tuned by the man, Brandon Lee. So I know that Circle D had, they did have a converter redesign. So if you get the numbers on the converter, you can send it to HP Tuner, or not HP. You can send it to Circle D and have them check it. And there may be an updated design that may help you with that. I know there's some tables that also need to be added to help with that, but Brandon would have known about that already. So I'm assuming that you need to get with them. Where do we email the tune and log to? All right. I'm not set that we're going to do this again. I want to see how this plays out in the next day or so. If it does help, bring new members or bring stuff to the page, and I do get enough comments that people do want this again, we'll do that. And what we would do is submit the tune file, a log of idle, driving, and wide open, no tuners' names. I don't need any of that info, and I need the mods done to the vehicle. You'll send that to justinwhitetoon@gmail.com, and then I'll at least check it for you no matter what, and I'll give you my opinion, which is nothing more than my opinion. And then if we do these again, and it has some things that I feel like are teachable, I'll make sure to put that in there, and you'll see it in an upcoming episode if we end up doing that again. Which one would you recommend I do first? I told you both, and nitrous. Like, either I use the money and just slap the converter on, or I put it towards ordering the fuel system instead. I'm indecisive. I know, but I can't help you make that decision, unfortunately. You got to make that one. I should be at Ice Cream Cruise this year. You going? I missed last year, but I'm definitely trying, and I'm sure Wendy's about to date check and say I got something else I got to do. But I'd like to do that because I'd like to take her car to the roll race. Because that 10-speed from a roll has got to be nasty. And thank you again for the donation. You've been kicking ass today. Oh, man, I came late. I'm sorry. But good thing is this will be posted, and you'll be able to go back through and review it at any time. But you're here before we're done. We're going to keep doing Q&A until you guys run out of questions, and then I'm going to go back to work, as always. I saw a post on Insta the other day where the tuner was trying to say a newer 6-gen Z01 when tuned made more power, puffing black smoke because he adjusted the ejection time and made more power. Hold on. The tuner was trying to say a newer 6-gen tuned made more power, puffing black smoke because he adjusted the ejection window. I'm not sure I'm following that 100%, but I will say this. If you watch the Greg Banish episode that we did speak about this. Typically, if you're 750 and below, and this is just relative, 750-ish and below, if you're seeing a lot of soot, then chances are that your ejection window is just not tuned properly. And, like you get the whole back of the car is black. It's typically not a good thing. The only time that I would say the soot is unacceptable is when you're making like 850 or more and you're DI heavy. The problem, and you're on pump gas. The problem is that pump gas, you have to put so much fuel into the motor to keep the motor cool that you will get particulates out, similarly like a diesel. But once you get into like methanol to cool the combustion or E85 like an adult, you shouldn't have any soot anymore. So you're kind of like a fine line. But if the car is sooting heavy and it's only making like 600, typically, like I showed you guys, they don't have the injection window optimized because they don't have the tables or they don't know what they're doing. Anyways, typically we retune a Gen 5 vehicle, and if the injection window is wrong, we will pick up 100 to 150. I've picked up 200 wheel before, which sounds crazy, but it happens probably 3 out of every 10 tunes. It's very common. So I'm not sure what exactly you were referring to, but hopefully that is somewhere in the ballpark. Sway Taryn, thank you, man. I appreciate that. It's brand new converter with 300 miles. It just depends on what date it was made, because it wasn't that long ago, when they had a concern with them and they had updated it. So you need to make sure that, just run the numbers by them. They'll figure it out. 100% need more of this. Like I said, I don't mind doing more. I just need to know that this is what people want and that it's worth the time, because I know it looks like I just popped this up here, but again, I've got days into this just to prepare for this one, especially if we start doing this once a week. That's a lot of time taken out of my schedule. Having a customer wanting to bring me a turbo 26 Silverado, how do they compare to the 1921 Global A? They're not way worse, but they are a little different. They're not, if you've done the 19 to 21, you should be okay with that. It shouldn't be that bad. Ban them, Wendy. Making around 600 in a. Yeah, I'm not sure, man. That'd be a between them thing, unfortunately. Do you have any advice on how to get more tuning business? I'm 19. I've been fixing junk tunes for over a year. Any advice? Honestly, Don't do like everybody else did starting out, including me. Be humble, try to learn, and just perfect your craft. Every time you think, man, I've got this shit down packed, you're going to learn more. There's more and more. I've been doing this for like 17, 18 years. Fuck, I'm old. And every single day I'm learning new stuff. So honestly, the biggest thing is don't make enemies. You know, you're going to have haters. That's just how it's going to be. But keep your head up, stay what you're doing, and you'll pick up the work. The work comes. It comes from word of mouth, you know, and you'll always slow down in the cold times and you'll pick back up later when it gets hot. It is what it is. Just budget for it. Again, not good at that. But that's the biggest thing I could say is, you know, when I was first starting tuning, we were going out, we were racing, we were winning, right? So we were doing better, but I let it get to my head and I was an asshole. And I was like, oh, we're fucking better than them. We're better than all these people. It was stupid. You know, it took me almost 30 years to figure out to stop doing that. Don't do that. That's the best advice I can give you. And when somebody asks you for help, just help them. You know, listen to everybody, process it. You don't have to lock it all in, but listen to everybody. Even if you think they're stupid, you'd be surprised what some stupid people can teach you. Wanted to say thank you for fixing the tune on 6 Gen Z01 back in December with Alec and PR. Been loving the car. Can't wait to hit the track. Appreciate that, man. Yeah, that one was fun. Dude had some weird bugs in it, though. It threw me for a loop for a day or so. Awesome. You're locked in for Ice Cream Cruise. You're locked in. Oh, I guess Wendy commented. 5.3 Trailblazer, 799 heads, TBSS intake, Norris Cam, ID tuned by you. What do you think we can make in power? Man, I don't really know. I'm not good at quoting power numbers. Dynos, the problem is you quote a number, they go to this dyno, it makes, 400. You go to this dyno, it makes 500. It's not the way I like to roll, unfortunately. We can absolutely make it as perfectly efficient as it needs to be and make the most power for the combo. I've heard Circle D is failing with a lot of 10R80s. Do you recommend Circle D over Pure, over stock? I can't relate because we have Circle D in Tim King's, record Blackwing. We have Circle D in Wendy's, 8-second daily driven CTSV. We've got it in Max Anthony's car, runs 880s. We've got it in the record Global V truck. I know that their earlier 10R stuff, they had some converter issues, but I know that as of late, they're 100% fixed, and I'm not like sponsored. I've been using them and a fan of their product for a long time, and it's a great company. Pure, I've never used their stuff. I've seen a lot of positive, a lot of negative. I've never tried it. So if you got a blower on like the ZL1 stuff, I mean, we've been 119, 60 foot on a stock converter. So it just really depends on your setup and what you need. No current update on Chicago. We'll just come out with that as soon as we know something more. My butt's hurting. Not just a question for you, but everyone who has experienced it in the chat. But with the 22 SS, if I do headers and an X-pipe, will I lose the modes for my exhaust? No, because the modes are and the exhaust in the back on the valves. When's this soy video coming out? Third time recorded, 0 posted. Listen, it's way more complex than you think it is. We worked with a lot of engineers when I was doing injector testing, so I just want it right. And every time I go back through it, there's so much that I'm like, they're not going to get that. So I'll give you a date. Give me a week to get it finished, and I will have it out for our gold and silver members. But it's coming. I will do it. I just want it right. I don't want to half-ass this. Just like when we do tuning, we don't want to half-ass it. I saw you posted that you're ready to hurt some feelings with your new setup. When would we expect that coming? In the winter. My car is currently at Russell Motorsports. We are supposedly going to the Motec FTR. We're changing a bunch of things. 6-inch pipe through the front bumper, copying LG Motorsports car. 12 rib from 2iPSI. Ice tank from Extreme CFM. I want to get everything on that car done before it comes back out, and then just fucking set the world on fire with it again. Because it hurt a lot of feelings when it came out with the first setup. Grudge racing mindset versus tuning business mindset. Two totally different mindsets. Still might be the fastest though. Yeah. I don't really like, I deal with grudge cars, but I don't like to promote grudge. It's just not, it's not great for tuners, I don't think. But that overdrive stuff that Popeye's doing is really badass though. Not gonna lie. Tuning a 2015 Camaro 6-speed auto has a random surging when coming down to an idle at a red light. Any ideas? Sometimes it's a 416. Yep. Are you part of our membership? Wendy, check them. If you're part of our membership, I'll tell you what it is. Also, when you're coming out of the injection timing, when you're coming out with the injection timing, thank you for the advice. Again, give me a week to get that solidified because I want it right. Who has your my old blue car? Is that what you mean? The CTSV? I believe it's in Alabama. I don't remember, but I know somebody just bought it. Yeah, old blue car. Yeah. I know somebody bought it and they're supposedly putting together, but I don't know. Do you have any inside knowledge about the blower that BTR and Rick Crawford are working on? No, I don't. Sorry. Can't do that. I'll send the ZR1 tune if you want to roast me for it. Not done yet. Done with it though. That's not a problem. Look, I will tell you that out of the tunes that people had sent in, there was one or two or maybe even three that, I messaged it back and was like, hey, everything looks pretty good. There's a couple things that I would tweak, but not that I would, spend the money on a tune for. It's not all negative. Not every tune's shit. I had one that I was genuinely impressed that I even messaged him and was like, man, everything, technically is really done well. I know you have this issue. This is easily correctable, but the fundamentals were there. It's not for me to roast you. It's a way for us to, to help everybody else. I had another guy booked a consult, sent me 2 tunes. I went through them, tuned by people that, may not be in our circle. And I was like, hey, it's okay. It's not going to blow up. That there's more on the table, but you get what I'm saying. It's not all a negative. We don't want this to be a negative. We want this to be a positive for everything. How do you keep a dyno sheet from going waterfall? I don't know what that means. What does that mean? I'm not sure I understand. Oh, smooth power curve. So that's typically, it's keeping the motor efficient, right? So if you see one coming up and obviously valve train intact, things like that, you've got it. You see that the log that we have where the timing was just flat across. Anything you learn anything about engine efficiency and dynamics, and that less timing blends to more timing, because as you get higher in RPM, you have to advance it to get everything lit off faster. So when you get those like flat timing curves, if it's not like a PD blower or something like that, like an NA setup or maybe like Sentry setup, you've really got to have that dynamic timing in there. And that's why you need that dynamic table. When you have the flat table like that, you can expect your dyno curve's not going to look great. But it takes somebody really kind of putting in that extra effort to find where that timing needs to be, those little spots. And it's not all timing, it's also fueling, but you get what I'm saying? It's all just optimization. All right, your silver member, it's closed throttle torque management. So on the downshift, CT downshift. On some operating systems, you do have to disable it. You will lose your rev match, but it will also fix that clunk coming to a stop. Stoked for the upcoming tune on my V. What wideband do you recommend for monitoring air fuel? I have an AEM unit lying around here that's brand new in a box. I like that one. Good to go. Is there any way I can get a hold of you for advice and pay you to look over my files? Yeah, just reach out. I have plenty of ways to contact. All I can say is it's running and it's not blown up. That's a fair point, and that's most of the journey right there. Aaron, I tell you things in confidence. Please don't post them here. We do know gatekeeping, but some things you got to gatekeep, bud. Anyways, it shows that he's a member next to his name. Keep up, Justin. Jesus Christ, where does it say that at? Is that why it's green with the little thing? I'm sorry. All right. we're getting towards the end. If you're on Instagram, Facebook, move over to Tuned In with JWT or JWT Podcast on YouTube. You know, I'll give it another few minutes, do Q&A. If you guys have any questions about the tune files we went through, ask now, forever hold your peace. And then, like I said, we'll give it a day or two of going through this to figure out if this is what we want to do going forward. And then if we want to do this once every other week, or do we want to just stick to the Q&A and the updates? This is for you. So what do you want? What do you like? How do we, advance this channel and this metric? So I'll give you guys a few more minutes to go through some stuff. And then, I'm going to go my butt back to work. I have the motor stabbed in the ZR1. What fuel do I need to have in the car before tune startup? We only have 91. But I have barreled C85. Typically when you break in a motor, engine builders don't like you breaking it on E85. So just throw the 91 in there. Let's get it fired up on that. Just don't put a lot. We'll get everything kind of broken in, get everything set up, and then, we'll advance quickly into the C85 or E85, whichever one you decide to run. C85. Say you were in a budget build for a daily driver. How would you sequentially build a 10R8? How would you sequentially build a 10R80 Coyote? Go boost first, then build trans, then full fuel system. I don't think I'm the best one to give you advice on a Coyote, unfortunately. I just don't know the platform that well. I'm sorry. But I always try to go fuel first. But I think that on the Coyote stuff, they do have a lot of trans issues. On the GM stuff, we just run the stock trans till like 1,000. But, I'm sorry, I couldn't answer that. Is the E85R really that big of a difference? E85 versus like pump E, yeah, there's good advantages of it, mainly being that, the E85 that you get from a gas station, 15% of it is 87 octane. The rest of it's, ethanol. Whereas like an E85R is going to be 15% race gas and then E85. And then C85 has a little extra in it, which has like a little bit of MTBE, which is like a nitro additive. So it gives you like a little power bump. And that matters. I already did. Get back to work. We need our good tunes. I'm getting there. That was Fallon. She was coming to say hey. There you are, Max. Appreciate it, man. Max out everything. Max out the world over here. Oh, man, we got so much cool shit coming up for you this year. I can't wait. I'm so excited for that. I'm probably going to have your car done before my car's done anyway. So, why not? FTR the world. Thank you. Y'all are a lifesaver. My dad's starting to hate this car because of the surging. He has to throw it in neutral. And it also had the minimum spark issue y'all covered. Burned up transmission 2 months. Yeah. Like I said, this is mostly just so you can check your own tune. And if I did your tune and I, have any of this in there, call me, let me know. I'll fix it. I'm not perfect. I'm human, but yeah, as you've seen, that minimum spark table is just it's a killer to transmissions. And I don't know why people don't realize that. Like you would think that the DD guy would have, he's watching the videos because he claims that, he's sued us for it or whatever, right? Which didn't happen. So he's definitely watching the video. So he knows what he's doing is wrong, but he chooses to keep doing it wrong. Weird. Blows my mind. If you find something I'm doing wrong and you tell me, believe me, I will take it and I will fix it. Can you throw it in with the tunes we have, or does it need a file for that? If you go to C85, we do need to add a little more fuel to it. But I'm down for that. If you're down for that. Are dynos bad for transmissions? Not inherently. If you spend a long time on the dyno, supported improperly or something like that. I know the Mustangs don't fare well on dynos with tail shaft bearing, but not really. I don't really see many issues. I'm excited to get the V2 back to street racing. You're almost there. You're like right there. Doubtful. Yeah, your car's gonna be done long before mine, bud. Long before mine. Mine's got a coolant leak now. Wayne went to go test some stuff on it, and yeah, I'm blaming Wayne though. I'm gonna get you to tune the truck, but you gotta relax with the nip picks. I thought you liked that. Man, I'm never showing you my nips again. You done lost that privilege. Evans HP Academy says it makes it take off faster using the torque management minimum turned up higher. Okay. I really like Evans Performance Academy. If you're talking about that, if you're talking about the tuning academy. But again, remember what I've said. Not everything is to be taken literal. Like maybe they have a reason for that. And I like a lot of the stuff that they have, but I don't agree with some of the stuff they have as well. You know, we don't all have to agree. That's just how this works. But you got to take it all. You got to test it. And then, you know, if you see that minimum timing is killing transmissions, you know that regardless of what he says, it's not good. Just remember that if the trans is pulling timing, it's doing it for a reason. There's no efficiency aspect where pulling a bunch of timing is going to help anything, right? So they wouldn't do that just to do that unless it's really like throttle. And then they're not going to do that and leave it out because then the car would feel like that. And nobody wants that, right? So just think of it in how GM was thinking of it and use it as an indicator. If you're dipping timing and it's holding it out and you got a U, then chances are it's trying to say, hey, there's something wrong. If you go in there and you say, lock that time and don't let that shit come out, you just wipe the transmission out right away. And, you know, maybe if you don't know and, you know, your tuner doesn't explain it to you and doesn't give you this information, you're not going to know. But if you've watched this video, now you know, don't let them do it to you. Curious question. Is there much difference between the 10L80 and 10L90? I don't know that there's a lot of difference. That'd be like a Tim King or Circle D question. I know the 10L90s are super, super stout, super strong, and we make 1,000 with those pretty often and very, very rarely have a failure. So, converter for daily. All right, so that's another confusing thing. And maybe Circle D's got me spoiled because some of the other brands that I have driven have been super sloppy, super lazy, and kind of you're like driving around. But like there's a 5500 stall in Wendy's car, the 10-speed twin turbo CTSV, and you can barely tell that thing has a converter. But when you launch it at the track, if you've seen her videos, it'll literally pull the tires to the 60 foot. So I think it really depends on what stall you actually need to optimize your combo, and then going with a converter company that, you know, builds it correctly to maintain that drivability as well as, you know, couple properly at the track. Can that timing dip be caused by a not right pressure or timing on the shifts? Both. And keep in mind that when you're making trans adjustments, you have to clear the adapts because you can have the adapts do that. So if you're targeting a 0.2 shift and you start getting a 0.05, even though we know that it's not really a 0.05, it just looks like it, it'll say, oh, well, we're overachieving, and the adapts will start pulling it back. And then you'll start adjusting it, and then whatever you put in there, it's going to pull that back. So everything has to make sense. Everything has to line up. So if you're asking for this shift time, you should be getting this shift time at this spot. My brother asked what sensor does he need to buy the car? Supercharger inlet air pressure sensor. So basically it's a sensor that goes into the snout. So it takes your MAP sensor, which is your pressure in the blower, your baro, which is in your charge pipe or your intake pipe. And then it compares that snout pressure, which is behind the blade, but before the rotors. So it needs to pipe into there. My 3600 and my 6th gen is very, very nice driving with lockup and a 10 speed. You don't even notice. Yeah, it's crazy how good they've made these converters. Do I need to adjust stall torque management when tuning for bigger stall? Yes. ZR1 tune sent for the roast. If I do roast you, I'll roast you privately. And then I'll roast you, but without letting people know. But now they know that if it's a ZR1, that it's your tune. Just remember that. You did it, not me. Super specific question for you. My tuner set manpower enrich at 0.6. Am I reading that wrong? Does it say manpower enrich? Minimum power enrich at 0.6. Is there a good reason why this is done? V2 and E85. Why am I thinking of that? Where at in the table? Yeah, we're out on the table. Let me see. What are we working with? A 20 what? V2. Jeez Louise. Minimum power rate. I'm not sure which table you're talking about. If you can give me the table number, I can look at it and I'll pull it up and we can kind of go over that. But I don't understand why they would ever do 0.68. 0.68 is always going to be way too rich. Just for reference, 0.68 would be 14.67 times 0.68 would be like 99 air fuel. Unless you're running like some nitro or meth or or you don't have flex sensor and you're on E85, they could have did that, but they wouldn't do 0.68. I don't know. I'll get with you on my full setup. Would like your input. Not a problem. I'm down for that. Minimum power enrich. Okay. Which table? Give me if you open the table, let's go to, let me pop this back up here real quick. Boom. Which table are we talking about? Oh, let me go to that screen. And if not, if you can tell me the table number is going to be like right here. See 12400. If you can give me that, I can try to help you a little more with that. I'm going to move on in the meantime. I'm running 325, 3518, ET Street R. Is it worth going 345? Yes. Yes, it is. You'd be surprised how much the 345 really helps over the 325. It's 2 inches on each side. And if you know 2 inches, that's a total of 4 inches, bro. That's massive. 4 inches? Come on. That's huge. Big difference. 2011 V2. I gotta get with you to come to Chicago. I'm coming to Chicago. I got plenty of people there. But I got other things, I like being home a little bit. But give me the table number and I'll pull it up. It's 12400. Okay. So add to stage. Boom. So we're talking about this. So they have 0.68 in here. That would be, what was that? What did I say? That was 99. So that's 14.67 divided by 9.9. So like 1.48. So like, do they have 1.48 in the table like that? Just try to clarify for me real quick. Come make my turd not a turd anymore. You got to get it finished, bro. I'm waiting on you. I don't have plans to come to Alabama, but I am very, very often in Gulfport. So that's close. Wendy's lying to you, bro. 4 inches tight. Bro, get out of here. This arm is fucking 3.5 inches. Okay? It's because your measurement's broken. We're going to start with MT ET Street SS 305 3517. That's not a bad place to start, but it just doesn't have the width, that girth, that girth matters. Okay, so this is what they have. Honestly, the only time that, unless you're actually hitting that target, if they have that in there, maybe they were using it for like adding fuel and running a dry shot, or they just have everything so far off that they're commanding that and then hitting a different target. And it's called PE hacking, power enrichment hacking. So this was easier or faster for them to just make this richer to bring it down, but not actually hitting 99. That's probably what's happening. But I mean, it's all a guesstimate. But no, I've never seen a V run at 1.48 ever and actually still drive. It would choke to death. I don't think that would ever be done on purpose. Good enough for roll racing, or should I go with the Street R? I mean, I've been mid threes on ET Street SS tires, so I mean, I guess it depends on how fast you are. Taylor, hold on. I'm gonna send my tune in. Hold up, let me find it. Are you talking about that cylinder sleeve delete tune? Thing is, I'm not. I feel like they didn't scale the math right. That's very possible. Again, everything has to make sense. If it doesn't make sense, then all of the math calculates off of the injector, and then the injector and mass airflow controls everything else in that tune. Like it's not like the injector data is kind of important. It's everything. So once you have one thing messed up and then you got another thing you've messed up, and it really kind of starts to snowball. That's why I always tell people, you know, the heart of that tune is making sure that everything's right. Everything's perfect. Injector data is super, super critical. And you want it right because it just makes your job easier tuning. Is the 1035 lower pulley from 2 PSI good to pair with the 2.3 upper full bolt-on cam CL1 with port plate and aux pump? I typically like to do the 10.5 and the 2.45. The 2.3 tends to slip a lot, even though it doesn't look like it's slipping, it is. But they do have that new 12 rib and that really nice idler tensioner setup. So, I mean, if you want to fucking party, absolutely. It will party. Mine shaped like a tuna can. That's gross. You nasty. There we go. Click, full click. Why is it not clicking? What's wrong? Oh, did you find Greg Banish Calibrated Success videos helpful more so than Evan's HP Academy? Got to figure out which one I need to spend my money on first. The Greg Banish stuff was good. I actually started with Greg Banish back in 2011. And then we did a podcast with him. Cool, like Mendeling. I do like the Evans Performance Academy. It's a little more in depth. It's a little more, you know, how did you arrive at this? They both have their own good and their own, you know, their own takeaways. So unfortunately, I'd probably do the Evans because it's $50 a month. And for $50 a month, you can get a lot of information. And then as soon as you get a little extra, grab the Greg Banish stuff. They each have their own way they teach, right? Like Evans Performance is more like motorsporty, things like that. Greg Banish is more like technical and OE level, you know, perfectionist. So they each have their benefits. The injector data was a bit off too, and using ID injectors. Anyways, thanks. I kind of knew something was fucked. Yeah, because ID injectors are some of the only injectors that have perfection of data. Like literally you copy and paste it. So if they can't copy and paste the data, I'd unfortunately be a little nervous about the rest of it. Again, if you'd like me to look it over, I don't mind looking it over. I'll give you my opinion on it, but I think you already know where we're going to start off wrong. The injector data is everything. In Gen 4, if the injector data is wrong, from that point forward, the rest of the tune is wrong. It may be technically correct, but all the mathing, everything else is wrong. In your opinion, what is the safe injector pulse width threshold when on E85? So it depends on RPM. It depends on what kind of injector. Are we talking direct injection? Are we talking about port injection? There's a lot of phasing in there. Factory LT4. So if you want just like a quick safe number, right? If that's what you're looking for, you know, 5.5. That way you have a little plus or minus. But you got to remember, and this is something that I thought was really cool. And if you're part of our member and I can get this website shit figured out, we'll be able to get you guys this too. Let me pull this up. So it's all dependent on RPM, right? So let's go back to wide open here. So this math that I did here, and you can use like ChatGPT or whatever to make this too. Ideal pulse width. So technically at this RPM with everything set, the ideal pulse width is 7. But as that RPM is increasing, remember that window gets tighter, and look, 6, 5, 4, down to like 3.7 at 6,500 on this setup with these numbers. Now this will move, but just kind of showing you that it's not cut or dry. If anybody's like, oh, you know, 5.5 milliseconds is where you're at and perfect, that's not how that works at all. If you watch TikTok and you have that guy that you watch that guy on TikTok that's like, you know, that's not how that works at all. That's not how that works at all. All right, let's see. Tire for the 345. Right now I have the Toyo R tire, but I had the ET Street SS before. I like the Toyo because you can, if you start to spin a little bit, it won't ball up and you can just keep going. That tire works really well. refer to what I just said 5 minutes ago. I hate you, but your car has ran faster than most people with the same setup, and it's been running for years, and your motor hasn't blown up, even though you constantly fucking abuse it. I don't think that's hate. Where do I send my janky tune to get roasted? 07 season. It's not a roasting. I'm just trying to help. But anyways, it'd be justinwhitetuned@gmail.com. What do you like better, PI or DI? DI all day. If I could make, the same 1240, 1300 wheel that my car makes on DI only, I would 100% do that. But I don't think we're there yet. Maybe getting there, testing some more products. We'll see. But I definitely prefer DI. But, both together works really well. It's the new C8, Z06, and ZR1 are both DI and PI. How's your C7 and V? They're doing fine. They're just stored right now, unfortunately. This is not a roast session, sir. But they're all going to know it was you because of this. Preferred brand for LT oversized DI injectors. So I've worked a lot with Nostrum, and we have a video that we toured their facility. I really like their data. I really like the way that they go the extra 20 miles to make sure the perfection. I've also talked to, I don't want to butcher his name, but the guy that owns XDI. I have noticed that they hold pressure a little better, but there's no data. But he has reached out and said that he's interested in working on data, so I'm totally down for that. So one of those two. I don't fuck with the FICs, unfortunately. I've just had way too many issues out of those. But, be Nostrum would be my first go-to, and then XDI would be, it's coming for sure. We did just do a car that made 951, Gabriel Griffin from Griffin Motorsports, and that was on E65 on DI only, and that thing is spicy. How much horsepower can a TR66 trans hold in a ZL1? 1,000 for a little while. Thanks for the show and tell. Remind me, how do I subscribe to you to become a member? Wendy, tell them. I don't remember exactly, but Wendy can tell you. But I know that if you go to our page on like a regular browser, it'll give you a button to join. I think outside of that, I don't think. She said it works on the app. I'm sorry. I should know this. I'll do better. Yes, I've tested lean cruise, but that is illegal here, so we shouldn't be doing that. What's the widest MT tire I can fit on the V sedan without rubbing? 17 by 10. I mean, we put a little spacer in Wendy's and we got a 30-inch tire on there, but I don't know the widest big tires. I know that the 305 45 17 doesn't rub at stock height, but on the wagon it will. I'm learning with Evans Performance Academy, trial and error. Unless they run 4.9 6130, they can hate. They can't hate. That's a good point. That's a great point. And a lot of people say they do, but they don't. Oh, that is true. We did have a stock as LT1 car that ran 4.9. So, honestly, when he told me that it ran that, I was like, no fucking way. I was like, don't you have a cam or something? He goes, no, it's box stock. And I'm like, and it still runs? And he's like, dude, it's been like that for well over a year. I'm like, this is wild. Because it's not like we tried to go for a number for that car. I had remote tuned it a long time ago, and he's just been racing it ever since, which is mind-blowing. All right. Do you have a good workflow, scanner settings, math to help with simplifying, dialing in virtual torque, etc.? Use a copy-paste special type workflow? I don't. If you know of one or you hear of one and you want to tell me, I'm totally down to check it out and, kind of learn from it. I've heard rumblings that there was something out there, but I still do it the old school manual way. I'll show you what I do have. I have a tab here for torque model. So, that way we can kind of go through and see where our final is, our engine torque, and just kind of look for things to be in line here. But I'm still old school with it, unfortunately. I told you I don't claim to be the smartest. I just, that's what I got. Yes, Sophie's been kicking ass on our website. It's just mostly me fucking up and forgetting things. And I'm working on it. I'd probably be working on it for the next 6 months before I'm like super happy with it, but it is working. And the cool thing about the website is, that guy that has that stock truck that paid, $750, $800 to tune his truck, with us, that would only be $550 now, where before it was $850 or $950. And I was like, man, I just don't feel like that's fair. I wanted dynamic pricing. So now the website allowed us to have dynamic pricing. So for the guys that are much simpler cars, they're going to pay a lot less. And the guys that have super complicated setups, they're going to pay a little more. But it really gives me the incentive to really go that extra mile and make sure that I'm putting in that effort for each car. All right. What's the email again? Justin White Tuned, TUNED @gmail.com. Did you pick up any mile per gallon on lean cruise? We don't have emissions in Alabama. No. You could, but it just makes a lot of heat, and I just didn't like it. It's a European thing. Do you think I could run Ignite Red? Fine. 100%. Yes. I'm tuned by you with burbles, and I like that. I like to slide. Should I take the burbles off Cadillac V2? Yes, and please don't tell me that you do the slide stuff illegally, because I will judge you, and I don't like it. Sorry. I know it's not my place to tell you how I feel, but I'm gonna tell you how I feel. If you do that shit in the street, just don't tell me about it. But yeah, you don't want to sit there, be banging it like that on the limiter. If you do it legally, right? I do have some cool things we could do to add to that to kind of make it safer and sound cooler. Hit me on a back line. We'll talk about it. But if you do it illegally, don't tell me. So you just view our channel on the main page, and there's a star that says join, and that's how you join the subscription. So Facebook, Instagram, go to YouTube, Justin White Tune, JWT Podcast, however you find it. Join our channel. Like our channel, subscribe, share this. Share it to people. Help people help everything else. Everyone is saying about this so-called good mile per gallon, I get 8.6. Every log you send me is wide open, so that might be part of it. Legal pits only. Thank you. Appreciate that. I'm sorry. I hate to be judgy because, who am I to judge? But, I hate that shit. Mostly because they'll steal somebody's car, right? Like, somebody have this badass Corvette that they've, put all this money into, and somebody will literally steal that shit, take it there, beat the crap out of it, and burn it down and not give two shits about it. And I think that's so fucked up. I couldn't imagine if that happened in my car. Okay, I'm trying to go to the next one. What plugs would you recommend for an LS3 in a? Okay, so typically I always say a BR7. BR7 EF is what I go with, but I actually did some cars in Chicago, and a guy had, nerded out like I do, and did the TR7iX, which I don't like for the boosted stuff, but for the NA stuff, he did say that his car was, ran significantly better, which it makes sense because they're iridium, with the TR7iX. So I would go with that. And then if you go to boost, we go to the BR7. Sent roast my tune. I will get on that. No way. What's that? You want me to go through the logs? Every log is 3 to 4, 4, 5, 6, 60 to 130. I'm not mad at you. Can I get close to the same mile per gallon on ethanol that I can on 93? Not at all. No. Using 30% more fuel no matter how you look at it. Thoughts on which power adder you would run for max effort roll racing? For 8th mile backside racing, would you rather see small cubic inch, big RPM, or big cubic inch, twin turbos? Well, remember, the bigger cubic inch, you're going to have the issue of managing that torque, right? So I always like the little small cubic inch. That's why on the 8th mile, I like the little blower, the 1.7. I think the 1.7 blower does really good. Or LSA or something like that. Personal preference. For power adder from a roll race, as much as I don't really care for Pro Chargers, they're a little better because less power down low, less chance of spinning. They come up top. Twin turbos would be the best by far. Turbos are undeniably the best. So twin turbo with the Motec goods is even bester. if that's a word. Because, you know, the way Motec works is it predicts the spin and it gets out ahead of it. So you're not trying to fix shit after it happened. So that's definitely the way to go. We talked earlier, I ordered high pressure fuel pump for my LT1. I'm copying that Stingray setup. Should I get the injectors too? I think the more DI, the more better, remember. But you should definitely have port injection too. He doesn't, but he's getting it. Just got the 2i PSI 12 rib kit delivered at HPS. Hope it gets done. Looks killer. Oh, yeah, I know. And then Wayne sent me pictures of it on his car. And then, you know, I'm like, not Wayne, Tim. Tim sent me pictures of it on his Blackwing. And I'm like, damn, mine's getting shipped to Wayne's car. Wayne's going to get to touch it before I do. Depressing. What about the Brisk? I run the Brisk in cars that race a lot or see a lot of abuse. I've had a lot better luck with the Brisk. But for daily driving I typically don't run the Brisk on something that is not going to have the plugs changed quite a bit because they do have a better tendency of fouling. But when you're like really trying to make some power and fuck some shit up, the Brisk is my go-to for sure. Is there anywhere I can find good info on reading spark plugs? It's all over online. And just remember to don't always trust a computer. Evaluate everything that you have and go from there. For a boosted car, for sure, Brisk. That's what's in all of our cars. Is there a type of fuel products that you wish existed that isn't in the market yet or could be improved upon, like pure ethanol, cheaper alternative to Ignite? Honestly, I don't know if you remember back in the day, Shell had this fuel, I think it was like called Shell VP or something. And it was like super insanely badass fuel. And I guess it just like fell through the cracks. And I don't know what happened to it, but I'd love for that to come back. If whoever was on that Shell VP project needs to come back. Because I remember putting that in a car and picked up like 60 something wheel over E85. I don't know what the fuck they were putting in it, but it was insane. Or that FTW purple, but that was like ran super great for like 2 passes and then blew up. So the Shell stuff was super stable. I was told to run TR7iX by someone. Now I see why you said wrong plug. Yeah. Everybody has their thing, right? And I don't knock anybody if that's what plug they want. I have certain plugs that I like for certain reasons. You don't have to listen to me unless I'm tuning your car. And if you don't listen, I'll call you a dumbass. Oh, and by the way, I've seen some have been asking about belt sizes, including myself. And for the 24965, and the answer is, look at this. Look at this godsend over here. You know? Everybody asks me belt size, and I'm like, dude, I don't know. I literally carry like 3 different size idlers just because if I can't find a belt, I just change an idler until it fits. So I'm not a patient person, if you couldn't tell. Must be why I commanded 12.2 on 93 at 15 PSI. Hopefully it is the only cracked piston not say, Jesus Christ. Yeah. 12.2 on 93 at 15 PSI is pretty stupid. That's my opinion. My opinion is that you're an idiot if you do that. Disadvantages of NA cam being in a boosted car. It depends. So the real disadvantage of an NA cam being in a boosted car is if you're on like PD blower, because you go from like an 8-inch, to 11-inch factory runner down to like a 2-inch runner. So, you kind of, it just doesn't work well. And you'll see when we do the cam shootout why that's a problem. But in a Century blower car, it's totally fine. A turbo car is totally fine. You recommend adding port injection to a stock blower C7Z, LME 400 LTR, Motec M182, LME, hold on, that escalated quickly. Adding port injection to a stock blower C7, LME 400, Motec M182, LME stage 3 cam, ran out of money for Maggie 2650. Fuck, dude, Jesus Christ. That's badass. But yeah, I would swap the cam out though, because it's way too big for this and for this. But yeah, I would definitely have port injection. You have an M182. Why do you not have port injection? I'm confused. Clarify that for me, please, because you got me confused on that. It's like you have all the pieces for greatness, but you stopped. Do you like nitrous or no? Fuck yeah. Nitrous is life. I don't know why people don't like it. Maybe because people mess it up. But like nitrous done right is like chef's kiss. Was the Shell VP stuff ethanol based? I don't remember. Honestly, I don't remember. You're talking like 2011. Let me see something. I don't remember if it'll even come up. Maybe it wasn't called VP. I don't remember what it was called, but man, it was super badass stuff. They were like hitting up all the shops and being like, hey, you want to try this out? You want to try this out? So we just did. And it was awesome. And they're like, yeah, now we can't get it anymore. I don't think I'd say NGK is overhyped. I mean, NGK makes a fantastic plug. I think that the reason I don't like the LTR7iX-11 on something that you're like real aggressive with is because if you do get into a situation where the fuel is unstable for like a millisecond, the porcelain will come out of it. Where on the brisk, you'll soften a tip or something like that way before the porcelain comes out and scratches and destroys your whole cylinder. So that's just my opinion on that one too. All right, we'll give it another few minutes, and then I've got to wrap up here soon. I think people are afraid of how unpredictable nitrogen can be. It's not unpredictable. You just have to do it right. You have to wire it right. You have to set it up right, and you have to have somebody competent to understand it. Once you have all the pieces, it's so easy. I think people just make it more complicated than it needed to be. Or they'll try to spray like a 400 shot on a fucking 400 horsepower motor. If you watch Shane T, his podcast on Street Alpha, he explains, if you're spraying this much nitrous to this much power, that the ratio is what matters. That's where I think people get it messed up. They're trying to spray a motor on a motor. And if you're trying to do that, you better know your shit. There's people that can make that shit work too. I remember Dinky from the Ped used to spray a motor on a motor on a motor. He'd come out with a 400 horsepower car and have 800 worth of nitrous on it, and it worked. But you got to know your shit. I guarantee he had a bucket of pistons lying around. So I see the spark plug comments. I'm running. Jesus, Steven. Jesus Christ, bro. Yes, and a 30 gap? No way. If you're doing the TR7iX with a setup like yours, that's a lot of cylinder pressure. You should be like 24. But I would definitely go to the Brisk RR12S and put them at like 20, 22. I'm acting like I didn't read that. What plugs would you recommend for my car? C7L21 ProCharge TSP 225 cam. That I would probably do the NGK 6510, which is the LTR7iX-11 at like a 28 or 30 gap. Just because of the way that comes in. Nah, I mean, we got to test that switch first. Then we'll fix it. When will your vet be ready to gap thick? Bro, I stay gapping thick. Everybody gaps thick. I don't know why. Except he did gap my boy with the C8ZR1, so we got to get our get back during 2K. Just saying. Can't have that little turd-ass Supra out there, stunting. How are you calculating spark gap in a boosted setup? Years of not doing shit right. Years of just seeing things and knowing what does and doesn't work. I promise you there's nothing scientific about it, but I've seen just about everything on like combos. And if I learn more, I'll share it with you. All right. What time is it? It is 11:35 here. This one went long. Okay. Look at that. I'm going to wrap it up with, please like, share, subscribe. If you're not a member, become a member. Help us do this. Share this with your friends. Share this with people. Hopefully this helps out a lot. I'm hoping that I'll get some phone calls, some tuners that want to learn some more stuff. And if you guys want to see this, comment. Let us know that you did like it or you didn't like it. Let me know how I can do better because I know that we can improve on this. And, I'll see where it goes from there, and we'll make a judgment call. I'm not so smart. I've fucked up enough things that I've learned how to not fuck up things as bad. That's really all there's to it. We only know what we know, and I try really hard to know everything that I can. I literally stayed up until 5 a.m. reading patents, getting ready to tune this C8. So I promise you it's not fun, but I want to make sure that when I go into things, that I go into things 100% ready. And when I give you guys information, I'm giving it to you from honesty, and I'm giving you everything I can give you. What wideband do you recommend for tuning? I really like the AEM stuff. It's cheap, it's effective, it works great. And Wendy taught me everything I know. So she's really the smart one. Thank you. Appreciate it. All the donations you did today, man, it really means a lot. And for becoming a member, I appreciate that. I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Hopefully, we'll see how this goes, and maybe we'll do this again. So thank you for tuning in. I'll see you guys in 2 weeks.